Greetings and salutations. You've successfully arrived at the Bloody Disgusting Network. The passage of time will now bring you to something strange, unique, and idiosyncratic. Have a good time.
Greetings, constant listeners, and welcome back to the Losers Club, a Stephen King podcast presented by Bloody FM, the #1 podcast network in the world, at least for horror. I'm your host, Michael Monroeville Mall Roffman, and today we are dusting off or doing a rerun. What's a rerun? You'll find out, kid. Remember that line from Back to the Future? Well, we're going to do a rerun today, and it's for Later, our book episode that we released in 2021, April of 2021, which is a good 4 years ago. So 4 years have passed, like that. That's pretty fast. And why are we releasing it? Well, we're re-releasing it because technically it falls in our chronological King reread, or read through, if you will, that we've been doing since 2017. So, we thought, well, maybe they didn't read Later in 2021. Maybe they were along the beam. They didn't want to stray along off the beam like we did. We're just throwing it out there. Maybe you saw it back then. Maybe you didn't. Either way, it's there. It's here for your listening pleasure. But look, you're probably wondering, well, maybe I listened to it in 2021. You got anything new for me? Well, we do. We're going to rank all the hard case crime novels. So all three of them, real big ranking. But you can get that over in the Barrens, patreon.com/the Barrens, where we talk about The Colorado Kid, Joyland, and Later. And we crown the #1 out of all three of them. All three of them. It's probably going to take us like 4 hours to do this. And look, we haven't even recorded the episode yet. So let's see if it is going to be 4 hours. Maybe you can make some bets. Go on FanDuel. We didn't get sponsored by FanDuel, but you can go on FanDuel right now and maybe lodge whether or not it's going to be Colorado Kid or Later or Joyland. I think you probably have an idea of what's going to be #1. Anyway, enjoy this episode, and I'll see you later. Specifically next week when we're back with some new content for you. Long days, pleasant nights.
My friendship to all of you precludes my involvement with any one of you. But if you want to make love, then I do too, and I'll be right there behind you. All in the name of oh, all in the name of oh, all in the name of oh.
Greetings, constant listeners, and welcome yet again to the Losers Club, a Stephen King podcast. Well, the lights are bright and awfully dead here in Laterland, which is where we are now taking residence here in this hard crime capital of New York City. Today we are here to discuss Later, which is Stephen King's newest book, I believe his 62nd novel, and that doesn't include his many, many, many other things. We usually go chronologically on this podcast, but we decided it's kind of fun to talk about the new books when they come out, so we are doing that with this one, and it's going to be a good time. Mike, why don't you say hello? Let's meet our panel here.
Hello, this is Michael Marsden House Roffman. Not at all a sly, cheeky reference to the Marsden House.
I thought it was a sly, cheeky reference to CBS All Access's The Stand, starring James Marsden.
They could go both ways. Let's just, I just assume that there's a huge giant face of James Marsden at the top of the mansion watching down at them while they're performing their nefarious acts.
Mike, how did you first encounter the book Later by Stephen King?
Well, I grew up with this book. It really meant a lot. I saw it on my dad's nightstand. I was like, what book is this? And who is Stephen King? No, this is a brand new book by Stephen King, not even a week old, really. And I was able to proctor this for an advanced copy, and I had an enjoyable time reading it. It was a breezy read, and I think those are key words that I'm probably going to be saying all throughout this episode. So
it's breezy.
Breezy.
Mac, why don't you say hello?
Hey, my name's McKenzie James Gerber, but tonight I'm James McKenzie. And swindler of people's earnings and savings. I first read this when I got the advanced copy. I burned through it. Randall mentioned a very specific thing, and I said, okay, cool. So I read it, And then I got to that point and I said, I have to read the rest of this tonight. So I sat down and I just read the rest of the entire book that night. Which
that
obviously
is a fun part of this book. There's a really it's like when people read the third Game of Thrones book, and no spoilers, but like there is that scene, like you know it when it happens, and like when I first read it, people were like, well, text me when you get to that scene, and I kept getting to certain scenes and then texting people, and they're like, that's not it. So and then when I got to it, I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, it is pretty undeniable which scene it is. So yeah, I feel like later is fun because it has one of those moments, which we'll discuss a lot later. Rachel, say hello.
Hello, this is Rachel. Don't call me Champ Reeves.
Ooh.
And I first encountered this book when it showed up in the mail that Mike, he sent it to me kindly. So yeah, I read the first half in one sitting. It's funny. I had kind of the opposite of Mac here because I reached that point and I was really tired. And I was like, all right, I need to take a moment and put this down and come back when I'm like wide awake because I can't do this right now. Yeah, my experience was similar to Max, and just like I kind of crawled through the beginning of it. I feel like it was like 3 different sittings. I read like the first 150 pages, probably because I was just sleepy when I was reading. But then once I hit that point, then it was pretty much like, okay, I'm finishing this tonight. So, which is fun. I feel like I haven't done that with a King book in a while. I mean, especially coming off Desperation and Regulators, like those are books that, especially Desperation, like its back half is actually really filled with a lot of exposition and like flashbacks. So it wasn't that kind of book where you're kind of sprinting towards the end. Whereas this one, I think that's sort of the benefit of reading, I don't know, tighter King, smaller King, leaner King. This is a 200 and what is it, like 70 page book?
260 pages, but that's including the ads in the back. So it's probably around like roughly 250.
Yeah, it's less than that because I think the page count looks like it starts like on page 20 or something.
It jumps
It's
ahead.
like really short. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely one of King's smaller volumes, which no complaints here. I mean, I reviewed this book for the AV Club. As I put in there, he usually stretches out his stories like taffy, but this one I feel like he's kind of squished it up into a tight ball, which is fun and refreshing and a new. Because there's so much here, and I think that's going to be a fun thing to discuss on this one. And we can start doing that in a little section we call the Derry Public Library.
Now, Mike Hanlon, if you see...
Excuse me, sir. Do you have Prince Albert in a can? You do? Well, you better let the poor guy out.
Tell Mike Hanlon that I had to go, that I had to get cleaned up. Tell him I'll see him tonight.
Get out! Last chance, Toja. Get out! Get out! Excuse me now.
Here, we discuss the history of a book. And there's not a ton of history because this book just came out. But there is some interesting things into at least how this story began forming in his mind. It dropped in March of 2021. It's his third release with Hard Case Crime, which is a hard-boiled fiction imprint with whom King has also released The Colorado Kid and Joyland. As with all Hard Case Crime books, it features throwback artwork, this time courtesy of artist Paul Mann. It features a buxom lady, I think, hanging out by a car.
Or Elza, was it Isa or Elza Gonzalez from Baby Driver? Kind of reminds me of her.
Oh, that's who you see.
Yeah.
And then a younger boy kind of watching her over his shoulder. He doesn't quite trust her, which I don't
like
think
a little
is
bratty face too.
a little bratty face.
Yeah, it's kind of a jerk.
Very young Kyle Chandler.
Yeah,
I can see that.
He grew up to coach Dillon Panthers.
That's right. Unofficial prequel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and has anybody here read The Colorado Kid or Joyland, or was this your first hard case crime book?
This is my first.
Yeah,
this is my first hard case crime book.
How about you, Rachel?
I read Joyland. I really liked Joyland, and I really liked this in a lot of ways. They're a nice diversion, I think, a nice little detour that he does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've read Joyland as well, and I also very much like it. I love his coming-of-age stories, which is, something that I think is a benefit of this one as well. Yeah. This story, however, had sort of a surprising origin. He did an interview with... It's actually a pretty boring origin, but it's also at least kind of... It's like kind of interesting. It's kind of funny, like the way when I read this... it just kind of it made me think of like, a phrase I've been using lately, which is like meat and potatoes king, where it's like, it doesn't sound like a huge burst of inspiration like created this book, but more so that he's like, okay, a few elements have coalesced in my head and I have a story now. He told USA Today, I wanted to write about a literary agent because I never had. One client that this agent has who is worth big bucks dies suddenly. What's she going to do about it? What if she has a kid who can see dead people and they have to answer any question that he asked? And I thought, I got a story.
Well, it's funny that he says that. And when I read that quote, it was really revelatory in the good kind of way, because when I was reading it, that's what I thought. That's where I thought the seeds of the story came from, because you could have made an entire book just with that story.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And I wonder if it's something that King, or maybe like his publishers have maybe joked with him about, because he's clearly a cash cow for, whatever publisher he's working with at any given time. And the idea that he could drop dead in the middle of a story, like, I think it's a very funny concept that, could somebody write a Stephen King book who is not Stephen King? Interesting stuff. But yeah, he elaborated on that in an interview with the Associated Press. He said, he kind of told the same story. Then he goes, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to make the love relationship female. Then I thought to myself, cop. And the cop is dirty, and everything fell into place.
So
it's just like, it's such
so
like
simple.
a completely unsexy description for like how a story came to you. Like literally you're just sitting in a chair and your mind like goes, cop,
You know what? You know how I see
female
him?
Relationship.
This is how it happened. This is how it happened with King. He's sitting down. It's like Monday night, right before whatever show he watches on CBS. And, he has to kill time. The news is on. They already had dinner. And he's just kind of, his mind starts working. He's got 45 minutes before, I don't know, whatever, like, what is it? Navy SEAL starts.
Person of interest.
CBS. Person of interest. Any of his shows. Any of the shows he name drops, like, repeatedly throughout this. But I just see him just sitting there. He gets he go through his mail that's sitting there also that Tabby left, it's just like with a post-it note saying like, you got to open these. So he finally opens it. It's like his agent from years ago sees the agent letter. While this is happening, stories about the news and the riots and cops being bad. He puts it all together. And I think before whatever show, let's just go with Navy SEALs. I like to imagine King watching Navy SEAls and being like, that Boreanaz has still got it.
So this is a current show?
It's a current show right now.
I thought you were
Navy
talking about
SEALs.
the Michael Biehn movie from like 19...
No.
Boreanaz is still very much alive. And kicking.
He's
David
kicking some
Boreanaz
CBS.
should have played Randall Flagg in the CBS All Access.
Well, in our world, he does. But I just imagine this is how he came up with it, and he did all the twists and turns while he was, sitting there, matriculating these thoughts as he was waiting for Navy SEALs to begin. And the next morning, he knocked out the book in an hour. That's kind of how I feel he got that.
I hear
that's
that is
story.
exactly what happened from my sources. So good job.
Yeah.
So not a ton of history there, but it is interesting. I think what's interesting to me about this is its classification as like a hard case crime book. I have a good feeling that I don't know, that he either was contractually obligated to provide another one, or maybe just kind of like wanted to work with them again and was like, hey, there is crime in this book. I don't know if it's a crime novel. And like he even has this character say multiple times, this is a horror story.
Yeah.
So I just find it kind of funny that it's under this imprint, like whereas the other, like Colorado Kid obviously is probably the most suited to this imprint and their thrust, which is basically to sort of evoke the, crime, grimy pulp paperbacks of yore through both design and content. But Joyland I think was even a little bit of a stretch for it, although I think it still fits it better. This feels to me like it's a horror novel, but I think lengthwise and the fact that there is a dirty cop perhaps and a filthy drug dealer is enough to qualify it as a hard case crime book.
Don't you think it's interesting though that like whenever he tries to do these side tangents in his career, he inevitably winds up in the same type of fiction that he does as Stephen King? Like you look at Richard Bachman and like what's the book that outed him for the most part, or when was he outed? It was right with Thinner. Thinner is a Stephen King book. Like that's not a Richard Bachman book, and it's like he progressively got more and more like Stephen King.
It came out as Bachman book.
I know it did, but it was right around the time that everyone knew that it was Stephen King, and it's just like the same thing happens here, where he starts out where he's like, all right, hard boiled. I'm going to give you some hard boiled fiction, and then inevitably he just starts doing a Stephen King book again. It's like he can't escape
this
himself.
was going to be a situation where halfway through it was going to take a turn and become more of a horror novel. But it's like right out the gate. It's like chapter 1, like I see dead people, like, and this is, like Sixth Sense and in more ways than one.
And it's almost like that. It's almost like the opposite too. It's like he got to the end and was like, "Oh shoot, I have to put some crime stuff in here." So we're gonna make this
Jimmy
this
Fats
gangster.
or whatever his name is.
Like we got to put it in right at the end. See, crime.
I know it, and and we'll talk about it more later. But like the photos he finds of like the torture and the drugs and the pills and all this stuff and ball gags, and I'm just kind of like, you're kind of like backloading this whole thing in terms of true crazy crime.
He really is.
So, a few other quotes King has had about later. He's done a few interviews about it. USA Today was probably the most illuminating one, but he said, talking about the lead character Jamie, who is a child who has a talent where he can essentially see dead people, he says, "The thing that interested me the most about Jamie was this is a talent that he was born with, and he kind of accepts it as just part of his worldview, the way that you would if you were born with a club foot or born blind. You would become used to that situation because you'd not known anything different. It's not like, say, Johnny Smith from the Dead Zone, who is an ordinary guy, and then he has this accident, and he wakes up, and he's got this ability to see the future." And then he also addressed, the idea of him writing these thrillers and mysteries. And it's kind of fun because you can sort of see King's insecurity, I think, that he's probably heard some people say, like, stick to horror, buddy, because he's becoming a little bit self-deprecating about it. So he goes, "Well, I'm not very good at mystery, and that's okay as far as I'm concerned. Alfred Hitchcock used to say, if a bomb blows up, everybody has 1 second of horror. But if the audience sees the bomb under the table, they're going to be terrified for 5 minutes and wonder exactly when it's going to blow up. So I'm interested in the suspense elements. I always liked that when I was a kid." And then similarly, he kind of, if we're talking about the self-deprecating King, he also kind of acknowledges that he's gotten, like, he's still great at writing kids, but when it comes to sort of capturing the language of kids and perhaps what they're interested in, he's still a bit behind. He said, "Things have changed in the real world that I have to try to keep up with. I'm always 4 or 5 steps behind, and readers notice that. I grew up in a world that didn't have cell phones or computers or video games, and kids, that's a part of their world. The same way that Jamie being able to see and talk to dead people is a part of his world." So it's just kind of funny. I feel like we don't often get to hear like self-deprecating King, and here it's like I added in my notes. It sounds like he's listening to our pod, because I feel like whenever he tries to have, in his modern books at least, tries to have his kids talk about pop culture, it always feels really cringe. Like the Institute, especially.
Yeah, I was going to say the Institute, when they're all talking about the latest, Rihanna single. It's just
Yeah.
like, all right, come on. I will say, to his credit, and this is something I was thinking about while I was reading this one, and even to a lesser extent, Elevation, he does a good job in trying to keep it current and in the pulse of today. And I got to give him credit for that. Like, we do forget that he is over 70 years old, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Like, this is, a 70-something writing a kid's point of view from the aughts, when he was, in his late 50s at that point. I got to applaud him. He does a pretty good job in that respect, I feel. Like, even though I do groan, and I'm going to groan many times at the pop culture references, I still buy that this is a kid from that era,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I can believe that. I have some fun misery later in terms of perhaps when it doesn't ring that way. But I think overall the arc, he's always known how to write kids, and he's always known how to write, about kids who sort of like can't avoid being swept up in the drama of the adults around them, and the ways that he filters that sort of, the problems of adults and the inner complexities of adults through the eyes of a child. And I think he does that really well here. One last quote. I watched him on Good Morning America. That Michael Strahan, really good interviewer. I've never watched it before. You guys know who that is?
Oh yeah, great guy.
Football player, right?
Football player. Look, I don't watch. That's an era of TV I do not watch. But I gotta say, Michael Strahan, Money in the Bank. This guy knows how to do it.
We should tell him that they should re-sign.
We should write to him.
I should write to him. Great job, man. Good Morning America. Stephen King goes, well, I think Michael Strahan was like, well, this book's got crime, it's got horror, it's got a little bit of everything. So what would you call it? And Stephen King goes, I call it stew. And Michael Strahan really enjoyed that. Every time King would come back to the book, Michael Strahan would be like, you're stew, Like, he's good. He's a good interviewer, man. Like, he knows, he keeps coming back to it.
Keeps cutting back to King. He's like, yeah, my stew. Let's go. Let's roll.
It wasn't the deepest interview, but like King was kind of discussing this idea of having a special ability that perhaps you're a little bit ashamed of or something like that. And he said, when I was a kid, I had a huge imagination and I was afraid to let people know that because they'd think I was weird. I tried to keep that a secret. The little boy in my book has been able to do this since he can remember. He takes it for granted. It's his mother who says, Jamie, you need to be careful about this. So not a great quote, obviously, but Michael Strahan still did a great job in the interview. And I just want to say thanks, Michael, for everything. I can't wait to watch more interviews with you and maybe Stephen King.
Well, you can see him as a co-host of ABC's Good Morning America, and also he's a football analyst on Fox NFL Sunday. So hey,
we got to get him on the pod.
We'll see you Sunday, Michael.
Hey, Michael, you want to talk about the Tommyknockers with us?
Yeah.
I will say, speaking to what you were talking about earlier about keeping it current, even though he's much older now, and I think something he did in this book that I actually appreciated more was seeing a lot of Jamie's, the way he speaks and his affectations and just different things like are really kind of things that he takes from his mother. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like, I almost was really giving a lot of that stuff a pass when he was talking in that kind of way or saying certain things. I was kind of like, yeah, I guess, everybody picks up things from like the people they grew up with. So I kind of gave it more of a pass because, it covers him over such a strange span of time too. So it's like, he's not just like this little kid. Right. I don't know. But I thought that was a little bit more, I don't know, made it a little bit more palatable, but.
I agree, Mac. I mean, when my dad used to come home, it would be like really tiring days, and he would just sit there and he'd put his hands in his face, and then I would sit next to him, and I would do his moves, and I would.
And then I would stand in the doorway, and I'd really admire like the connection you two were making at the dinner table.
yeah, it was a really touching moment, and that's why we always cry when we watch Jaws, because we're like, God, it's just like when we grew up.
Same.
Oh my God.
Same thing happens in that movie. Yeah, you're right.
All right, let's move on and talk about the critical reception to Later, which at least so far has been mostly positive. The New York Times said, Later is yet another example of King's talent in building stories out of the materials of his choosing. And like so many of his creations, it's remarkable how well the thing holds together. The pace and ease of reading, the ratio of familiar to new. So he's essentially saying sometimes King books feel like the cobblings of many different ideas. Yeah. And King is usually pretty good at bringing those together, which is fun because that's actually a big discussion on our Regulators episode, which I believe comes out next week or in 2 weeks, relatively soon. And is that general idea of an idea from here, an idea from here, an idea from here, and smoosh them together. And I think this book, I agree with the New York Times in the sense that I think that works pretty well. The review adds, And a bit, this is more of the critical aspect of it. They say, despite its early assurance to the contrary, later is like that movie with Bruce Willis, Sixth Sense. But beyond the superficial similarities, sensitive kids, single mother, talking to dead people, the emotional core of King's story, in particular the parent-child relationship at its center, is also reminiscent of M. Night Shyamalan's. Whereas the movie evokes the depth of feeling through stillness and restraint, King's novel is more effusive, stating things that could have remained unsaid. Hey, that actually suits the themes, which we'll talk about more later. And then the horror author Stephen Graham Jones reviewed it for the Washington Post. And, you know, it's kind of wild. I feel like having a horror, like a kind of a currently successful, moderately successful horror writer review King is kind of like having like, I don't know, some mid-tier basketball player like review Michael Jordan or something.
Yeah,
like
if
I was like a horror writer, I wouldn't be criticizing Stephen King in the pages of the Washington Post, lest he send his armies after me. But anyways, it's a very good review. Jones writes, King's writing in later is as clean, direct, and evocative as it's ever been. The short, to-the-point chapters make for quick reading. The crime-driven plot is propulsive, involving guns, drugs, bombs, and kidnapping. But more importantly, some of the lines just take your breath away. So,
the last line there is kind of lame.
I agree.
Say Mac's face.
Could have done better than that.
I think that's very misleading. I was like, I mean, yeah, there's bombs and guns and things, but not as much as you make it sound like Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Right? It's a little much. I agree that I think it's clean, direct, and evocative. I go, and it's quick reading. I stop there, Jones. You failed me. You failed.
I think he's trying to get a dinner date with Cy King. Yeah. But hey, who can blame him? The Associated Press called it a thrilling whodunit.
Wordy.
Which,
classic.
Yeah. And then the AV Club, as written by Randall Colburn.
Who wrote that?
I included some bits here, and I'll be drawing upon a lot of them. But I said, Later's big gushy heart beats for Tia and Jamie's bond, which is sweet, offbeat, and not without its secrets. King has always had a knack for funneling the complicated inner realities of adults through the eyes of children, and some of Later's most affecting passages find Jamie piecing together his mother's struggles via empty wine bottles and scraps of overheard chatter. And then I compared it spiritually to One for the Road, the Salem's Lot kind of spinoff, and the titular tale from last year's If It Bleeds. Then I said, narratively, however, later recalls recent King novellas like Gwendy's Button Box and Mr. Harrigan's Phone, simple stories that wrap a complex moral choice in a character's supernatural ability.
Well said.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be elaborating on those thoughts later. But yeah, before we do that, let's read a synopsis of this one. I've got usually we read synopses from several different editions of King books, but since there's only this one, we will read this one. Mac, why don't you read the synopsis here?
I've got to pull it up.
Oh, okay. Mac's not going to do it.
All right.
Mike, you read it.
I got it. The son of a struggling single mother, Jamie Conklin, just wants an ordinary childhood. Do you have it, Mac?
I mean, I had the book. I thought you wrote something else in the thing that you sent.
I think it's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing. You want to read you want to read the next line?
Yeah, sure.
Do it sentence by sentence.
Okay. Wait, you did the first sentence
already?
I
did the first one, yeah.
But Jamie is no ordinary child. Born with an unnatural ability his mom urges him to keep secret, Jamie can see what no one else can see and learn what no one else can learn. But the cost of using this ability is higher than Jamie can imagine, as he discovers when an NYPD detective draws him into the pursuit of a killer who has threatened to strike from beyond the grave.
Later is Stephen King at his finest, a terrifying and touching story of innocence lost and the trials that test our sense of right and wrong, with echoes of King's classic novel It. Later is a powerful, haunting, unforgettable exploration of what it takes to stand up to evil in all the faces it wears.
Did Stephen Graham Jones write that synopsis?
Yeah, I know, right? He was probably just like, Stephen, come and hang out with me. I'm at Sbarro in Times Square.
It is interesting they call it echoes of It, where it's more, I don't know if it's echoes necessarily. I think it's direct references.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, this doesn't feel like that book at all. I'm like, that would maybe be an echo, but like, this is a direct sequel.
They've been leaning on
anything.
To be fair, they have been leaning on It ever since that movie just did juggernaut business in 2017. Like they were like getting the Institute to that. I'm pretty sure they referenced like,
they did do that with the Institute.
I think even with like The Outsider, they were kind of like, the most deadliest villain since It or something like that. It's just they're gonna capitalize on it. This is a direct link, though.
I mean, there is a direct link. So it's like,
There is.
why would you even put that in there? Because what a spoiler alert!
I know.
If you didn't
I know.
know, like you'd maybe be looking for something.
Well, it's just trying to get the folks that like saw it in theaters and they're like, man, that fucking movie was great, and I love the kid from Stranger Things. And then like a year later, they're walking around in the store and they see it sitting there and like, oh wow, what's this? Stephen King. And they see it and they're like, well, I like that movie, so I'm going to read this book.
Thanks for breaking down marketing 101, Mike.
It's a buzzword. It's a Stephen King buzzword.
It really is. It's more than The Shining now, which is
crazy. So
crazy.
you're saying after it came out and was a hit, the publications tried to draw on that?
Yeah.
Like in some of the synopsis on the back of the books and things?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. They were probably like, this is a big movie that made a lot of money at the box office, and quite possibly we could make money at our book company if we lean on that.
It'd be funny if they said, soon to be a major motion picture starring Finn Wolfhard.
Finn Wolfhard.
I can see the production, the publisher's like, hey, this crime novel that you gave us later it's really, it's really interesting. It's really good. It's really good. What if the Clown Prince made an appearance? And he's like, well, that the hard case crime novels are supposed to be more crime. And they're like, yeah, but it.
We love that Billy Skarsgård, and we want him in the book.
So Mike, you had been buzzing a little bit about a possible sequel to It. Before this book, it was revealed that there is a direct tie to It. I don't know, were you lurking message boards? Where were you hearing this news?
So I scour Reddit threads all the time, so if you shit on our podcast, I'll read it. No. All joking aside, they're great. It's probably one of the best subreddits that's out there, just because everyone is, hyper intelligent, hyper literate, and everyone's pretty accepting of the opinion. But one of the big recurring threads that it didn't matter, whenever you stumble on there, you'll see it within the next 5 or 10 posts in the front page, was talk about an It sequel. And it's just been circulating for a couple of years now. And I remember the lead up to the Institute, there was a lot of chatter, but then I think most people thought that was actually going to be more of a link to Firestarter. And then after the Institute, leading into like If It Bleeds and a couple other projects that we've been hearing about this summer, like Billy Summers and this one, there was a lot of conjecture of like, well, is this the one that we keep hearing about? There are all these like sources that are saying he's doing a sequel to It. I don't know if it came from mostly film chatter of them, when Warner Brothers wanted a sequel or whatnot, but there was a lot of gravitas to what people were hearing and reading about, and which is why so many people were talking about it. And I think this probably was it. I can't imagine,
I was going to say, I think, and I don't know about y'all, and I know we'll probably talk about this in a specific section, but I was very glad that this was done in the way that it was done. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, here's a follow-up, but, we're not bringing back old man, whoever from It to come, you know what I mean? Like, who do you mean? Who's
the old man in It?
Bill Denbrough?
I was trying
Are
to
you
think
talking
of Ben
about Bill
Hanscom.
Denbrough?
I was trying to think of Hanscom. I couldn't come up with the name.
What, he walks by and he's like, you like that building?
I think this is a smart way to continue that idea of It without tarnishing it. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Agree.
Because it was like, it didn't really, because the way that they approached that thing in this, it could totally stand on its own. You don't need to have read it to understand or be scared by this version or this. I mean, we'll get into all that, but I like that this was the kind of sequel thing we got, because I think if we get a direct sequel and it's not any good, like no one needs that. Like, just like, this was an interesting way to kind of
sort of
breathe a
backdoor
little life
sequel
into that story again.
Yeah, I think I liked it too. Just, I think it was genuinely surprising, because also it came in a hard case crime book, which I guess weirdly I just didn't. I kind of see these books as little rafts, like they're little, like they're not part of the mid-world, like they're not part of the Gunslinger universe. These feel to me like
not
sort
anymore,
of
baby.
What was that?
I said not anymore, baby.
I know, not anymore, which is wild. I guess I always thought that these were going to be these sort of self-contained hard-boiled novels that would, in a way feel like Bachman books, like in a way they feel like they're by a different author. And so I guess the idea of the Stephen King multiverse like emerging in a book like this, it was so surprising to me.
Well, the thing that's surprising in that is, and there was already chatter on Discord about this, but it would take place on Keystone Earth, which I guess still is part of the Stephen King multiverse, which by its nature is very strange to be part of the hard-boiled fiction. But that's what I thought was an interesting diversion, like the fact that he talks about the Shawshank Redemption as a movie in this book. Kind of stresses the point that this isn't like the actual King's Dominion that would be in I guess it would be in the Dark Tower still, because it would just be the Keystone Earth. But I guess that was his way of showing the distinction of like, all right, this is hard-boiled crime. This doesn't take place in the same It universe then, because if it is in Keystone Earth, it wouldn't be in It, right? Like,
well, I think it's
sorry, this is getting nerdy, but
no, I think it's important to understand that this is clearly like a different dimension / beam or whatever, and that this isn't. I did not think by the end of this, I did not think that this was It from It. I just thought, cool, another Dandelo-esque creature, same properties, but goes about things differently, because the way that he interacts with Jamie is very different. Like, he's almost tamed all of a sudden, and like all these different things that happen. It was like, that would not be what It would do. You know what I mean? Like,
he turns into a Pokemon.
Basically. So it's like, I feel like there's a tie there, but I don't think it's a direct tie. I just think this is another, even the way that it takes over the character is different. So it's like, I just think,
oh, go for it, Rachel.
I think that's what's so interesting about it, is that it is just similar enough to make those comparisons, but like what Matt was saying, it's like it operates different in this universe. So it's present in both of these these King universes that are created, but it operates in a slightly different way. And I loved it, and I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. I didn't really know much about this going in, and I did not read the synopsis going in on the back, so I did not even see the echoes of it. So when that happened, I was like, all right, game on.
I had a similar experience in just that I hadn't read the synopsis before I read the book. Like I had read the one that was sent out by like publishers, but that one didn't have the echoes of it in it. Though it's the book itself that has it, and I didn't read the synopsis before I read the book. So it was I had like it was a really fun, jarring moment of surprise. So which I don't get too often in things. And it like kind of sad. I think it's kind of like when really big Marvel fans like watch a movie and Captain America cameos in a movie, and they're so excited because they weren't expecting that. That's King's multiverse is my Marvel verse, so it's so for me to get a Pennywise adjacent sort of creature in this world was super exciting for me on that nerd level,
But to your point about him making efforts to actually wield in his own universe in this hard-boiled fiction, I mean, these are very deliberate choices. And he's not only just, this isn't just like a, hey, let's just throw in Chud to reference Chud. Like, not only is it in service to the actual story itself and to the heart of the themes, but then you think about like the spider web of references it's wedged within, in this book. Like I've been talking about and joking on the text threads and even on Discord about the idea that like King is trolling his readers here. And I don't think that's too far-fetched to say. I mean, there's just like a list of things that he does in this book that seem like almost like tongue-in-cheek references, like, oh, you were expecting this within this King's Dominion. I've already opened the door that this idea of the connections to King's Dominion are here. I'm going to have fun with you and play with your mind a little bit with some of these little like kind of token examples. And I wonder if that's either A, just him having fun with his own universe, or B, trying to have a commentary on just like the world we live in now, where like IP is so important to every original story or any type of product that it's being made today. Like, you have to have references, you have to have connections, you have to have some sort of tie or reference that people can kind of thread out on the internet, because then it'll make it buzzed and it'll hype. And so I wonder if there was some sort of subtle commentary on his end about that, because it's all over this book. I mean, even the smallest things.
I think he's definitely having fun.
Yeah.
but he's always kind of had interconnectivity with a lot of books. You know what I mean? I mean, I get ran through the, I get ran through the dirt whenever I bring up another like 19, like and everything. But it's true, like he does, and almost everything. There's always a connection. But I definitely think that he's probably playing with that a little bit here. I don't think if he was feeling like I have to do this because this is what people want, I don't think we ever would have seen the creature show up again, or Dandelo or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so I think even if he believes that, I think he's still kind of on board with it. I think he likes the world building, and I think that's all Marvel's done has probably, he's probably looked at that and been like, I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
Well, I think
because everything's interconnected, and you can, everybody likes that. So
Right.
I'm just gonna keep building on it, and why not bring this character back? It's almost been. I mean, Justin and I were trying to figure this out. It was close to 27 years, so I was like, maybe it is it.
Yeah.
If you do the math, but I don't think it works out because we looked into the season finales of Fringe.
Oh my God.
They mentioned it in the book, and I was like, okay, well then it had to have been this time, and nope.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Well, we'll probably discuss the whole. We'll go more in depth with the use of the deadlights here and this sort of Dandelo-esque creature a little bit further. But let's pivot over to discuss the hook.
Ah, yes. Don't you see? Don't you see how clear it all is? Not only can you see the future, I can change it. You can change it, exactly.
Here in the hook, we discuss what themes are abundant in this book. What are we taking away from it? What is sort of the way in here? The way in, I think, in a lot of ways would be it's the Sixth Sense, even though he tells us straight up at the beginning of the book, not like the Bruce Willis movie. But here we have this young boy who can see dead people. And I think the twist, and it's one that I really like, is that it's not exciting for Jamie. Jamie is not stoked to have these powers, nor is he necessarily burdened by them. He simply exists in a world where he sees dead people, and he sees them, covered in wounds. So that's obviously horrifying to him. But the thing is, the ghosts don't care about him. They ignore him. They are mostly disinterested in him. But he discovers that if he does speak to them, they tell him the truth. They always tell him the truth. So King sort of lays out that this book has very specific rules right at the beginning.
I have all of them listed if you want them.
Yeah, read them all.
Yeah, so this is a section of new rules. So the first one is dead people look just like living people, except they're always wearing the clothes they died in. That's the first rule that's given. Creepy. Second one is they have to tell the truth when they're dead. The third rule is that they eventually fade. And one of the other rules is they know when Jamie sees them. Which actually leads to kind of a tonally odd moment in the book. But they can feel hate. And in fact, he argues that hate makes them stronger, which means that most of the time, if you do end up seeing a ghost, they are scary because they are angry and filled with hate, and they are scary. He estimates that the dead goes away after a week, for the most part. The average ghost. He says that the living dead, or the living can feel the dead subconsciously. And we see that multiple times in this story, which actually leads to some fun moments. And there are some other presumed rules of the celestial being that comes later on that we call Thrall. But, and then the last one, and you'll like this, Mac, because you love when animals can link with humans. The dogs can see the dead. So...
That's right.
Yeah, that's all I got.
We almost had a Cooge appearance in this other world. This
Keystone. Oh, would have been great.
Which the dogs can see the dead is not the first time he's done that. He did that with spoiler alert for Under the Dome. That's there's a certain corgi that can see ghosts in that book. So
I don't remember that from Under the Dome, but I haven't read it in a very long time. Well, the rules are interesting. I remember being annoyed at them at first because it felt lazy in a way. It felt like the writer trying to say, this is what works best for my narrative, so I am going to enforce these rules that apply to all dead people and spiritual beings that this boy has developed. But what's fun about later that I really enjoy is that the rules are eventually subverted, which is very true because, this kid is developing rules because it's his way of understanding what it is that he's, seeing and processing. And so there is some kind of like, are we pronouncing his name? I don't know the exact pronunciation of the bomber. Is it Therio or Thoreau?
I thought it was Thorol.
I was just calling him Thoralt.
Thoralt?
Pronouncing the whole thing.
Rachel, what's your?
I think I was saying like Terrio or something.
We can call him Thumper because I was.
Yeah, let's go with Thumper.
Yeah, let's call him Thumper.
Thumper's
the
good.
bomber.
So Thumper, when he emerges, so this is this, bomber who ended up. How did he die exactly? Do we remember?
It was
Killed himself, right?
Yeah, he killed himself. And
the
so,
park,
but he basically, all the rules kind of get broken with him when Jamie sees him because he's toying with Jamie. And when Jamie presses him further for the truth, the sort of they have to tell the truth rule, it goes on because he does eventually reveal where the bomb is that Jamie's trying to discover. But the thing is, this ghost is not fading. Thumper is following him and stalking him and waiting outside of his window and waiting for him in elevators. And it's clear that there is something malevolent about this particular ghost, that even though he succumbs to some of the rules that Jamie's established, it's very clear that whatever, that the understanding that Jamie has of the spiritual world with which he has a link is flawed. It's not completely fully, he doesn't have full control over it, which is to me one of the more exciting aspects of the book, which is King sort of lulling us into this sense of comfort that we understand the ghost too, but then kind of turning it on our heads and making us feel as threatened by Thumper as Jamie does. So
yeah, I thought that was really smart because I felt the same way. Not that I felt kind of, hey, why are you creating these rules? That's kind of ridiculous. But in the fact that when things don't go that way, it was really unsettling. I was like, oh, I know that he posits later on that, the Dandelo thing. What are we going to, they're just going to call him the Dandelo thing?
It's called
the deadlight.
Or the deadlights.
That the deadlight, entered Thumper's body when he struggled to tell the truth, when he was trying to not go the route of this is your ghost, you're supposed to do this, that's when the deadlight entered him, and then that's why he stuck around and did all these things, because he wasn't in control anymore. He wasn't just a normal ghost. But it doesn't matter, because like you said, Randall, he's so young when he's coming up with all these rules, and that's all he's experienced. We don't, you know what I mean? He hasn't, we don't know what he's going to see or what kind of dead people do what, down the line. And I think some of that stuff does shift a little bit, like especially at the end when Donnie Biggs is like forcing himself to disappear because he doesn't want to be around during the reveal that he was this really awful human being. They have some control that you don't realize that either. So that was kind of cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rachel.
I was just going to say, it tracks with the fact that this is a kid, and this is a kid figuring it out and trying to, like you said, make sense of what's happening. And, as you get older, you think you know everything. I'm sure I'm not the only kid whose parents told him like, oh, you think you know everything? Just you wait. Like, so it's just your worldview shifts and changes as you learn more. And I think that this was a really interesting way of showing that in Jamie's own unique way.
Yeah, it's a cool mode of sort of adding a cool supernatural touch to a coming of age story, because, when you are young, you do think you have it all figured out. You think that, the rules that you've set, everybody's going to abide by them. And that's the hard part of getting older, is they don't, and you have to readjust and you have to compromise and things of that nature. But yeah, King does a really good job, I think, here of also showing how those rules are true in many instances. We get a couple cool sort of, small, minor stories that help build the narrative, where first the wife of Tia and Jamie's neighbor, this man, Professor Burkett, his wife dies. And basically they can't find, what is it, her ring, like her jewelry, her wedding ring. Yeah. And so Jamie's able to, ask the woman, where are the rings? And then is able to tell his mother where they are. And it's sort of, so this is how his ability can be useful. And then that is expanded upon with the idea that birthed the novel, which is, what if this cash cow writer dies and he's only a few chapters into his novel? And basically King sets up this whole story where the Tia's publishing company is falling apart, big money troubles. They need this book. So they find the ghost. She trusts her son that he can actually do this thing. And then he basically milks the story out of this author and writes down every plot point because the guy's got it all mapped out. And then Tia goes on and writes it herself. So those are, I think, really entertaining and fun ways to set up those rules. And I think those are the things that kind of lull us into that sense of comfort. Because what I like about this book is there's humor baked into that. Like Jamie doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to talk to this ghost and get all these plot details of this raunchy Botus Ripper historical fiction novel that this guy writes. He has no interest in that, but it's sort of his burden. And I think that, setting the kind of exasperated nature of the, preteen in this world, juxtaposing that with this sort of supernatural homework that he has to do to help out his mom is funny and it's fresh. It's something that I feel like I haven't seen before, especially in a King book. So.
Yeah, I mean, he does a strange inversion, like he starts out this book with such a punchy, familial tone. And again, for the most part, he carries it out through the end. But I think the seeds and the origin of this story are diametrically opposed to like where it ends up. Like this could have just been, if you think about it, like the first episode could have been kind of like a tongue-in-cheek, almost Elevation style book where it's just like him and his mom trying to figure out this novel together. And, she finds her voice and, she's able to complete this novel and save her company. And maybe she writes her other novel on the side and the two of them, did it together. And there's this great bond that they have.
And her name was Stephen
that
King.
coming of age story could have gone. And her name was Stephen. Yeah. And then, it builds on that and you get more episodes. And then as the episodes go on, you realize that like, while yes, this is still a relationship, this is a story about, a boy and his mother, but man, does King really, this might be, hats off to him in terms of him stacking up on his narrative and just kind of letting it go and being by the, the fly of the seat of his pants. Like he kind of takes us to a really just surprising area and in a tone that you just do not expect from the beginning. And granted, Jamie says throughout the whole thing, like, this is a horror story, but this becomes so much more than even horror. I mean, this is becomes like a fucking Polanski movie by the end of this. I mean, it's just like, when you really think about where the arc goes to. And I don't know, it's kind of, it's interesting where he's able to take this and take what could have been a balmy coming of age story into something that is still a coming of age story, but it's on a different track. you know? So.
That was a question I had for all of you because, he says over and over again, this is a horror story. This is a horror story. And I mean, just getting your opinion, like, is this a horror story? Because to me, maybe it is, but not in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
Like to me, this speaks way more to like anxiety and, mental illness and the fears that you have being a parent and interpreting those as a child. And so, yes, those are all really scary, horrific things, but I don't know if horror story is how I would describe it.
Well, I think when you have all this like prestige horror out here, like Hereditary and all this stuff, like I think I think when he was saying that at the beginning, I wasn't thinking, oh, this is just going to be, just jump scares and this and this and that, because it doesn't go that way. And it becomes very much about dread, especially when Thumper starts like following him. And it's just kind of like this thing that never leaves you. And it's just like, it gave me that It Follows feeling, like this, like it's always going to be there kind of thing. Like is never going to go away. And that was kind of scary. I always think of like the tagline for Zodiac, like there's more than one way to lose your life to a serial killer.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like, but yeah, it's not typical. And maybe that's why it's under the hard crime case, banner, because it's not your typical Stephen King horror, even though there are elements of that in this.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned, like the prestige horror banner, Mac, because I think that's kind of where he does take it. Because if you look at like the two themes that are going on here, I mean, you have a lot of it's not generational trauma per se, but it's very similar to that in the sense that, where this leads to with this, the themes of incest and what's going on with all the stuff that's happened within the family, that is a different type of trauma, and than you would have expected from the first pages of this book. And when he says like, this is a horror story, especially where the tone is and the fact that he's referencing things like, like Sixth Sense and, things are a little tongue in cheek there in the beginning. Like where he lands this is in a place that's more profane than I thought it would be, like even like the character of Thumper, like Thumper is not just your Dandelo average, run of the mill villain. Like granted, he's bringing back the Deadlight. He's bringing back the celestial being that is it. But what Thumper represents is something far more impactful and more thematic than most of his monsters are. I mean, like if you couple the idea that the whole arc leads to this revelation, for Jamie, and so much of that deals with the quote unquote like generational trauma, this idea that things are being passed on to him, that he's going to have to live with this, then his offspring will probably have to live. It kind of changes the whole trajectory of the family thing.
Let's just like explain, because we haven't said what that ending is. Like what is the realization is that he finds out in the epilogue, and this is a really jarring moment, and just watching our Discord sort of react to it in real time has been really fascinating, because Jamie essentially discovers that he is a child of incest, that his uncle is also his father. And so Mike, continue what you were saying.
So like when you take that revelation and you pair it with the concept of what Thumper is to him, because by the end Thumper's out there. This thing that he's had on his back, that he's contended with, that he thought that he battled, that he thought that he was able to overpower, is now out there. And the idea that this thing, this tulpa almost, the tulpa manifestation of this trauma that he has to live with, there are parallels there. And that's kind of what I took as Thumper. It's like, yes, he says that he's going to have to contend with, this beast, and he's going to have to do the ritual chud again. But what he's really talking about is this revelation at the end. It's really like, well, I'm going to have to live with this. And it's almost like King's wisely found a way to take both sides of his narrative and take it to this elevated place that I just did not expect. And that's kind of how I took it. That's why I took it as like, it is a horror story, but it has like a more thematic, real life aspect to it, which is kind of fitting for the hard-boiled fiction when you come to think about it. So I don't know.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rachel.
I was just going to say, I will say, like, I found myself personally connecting to this, like this little book, this little like crime book. Like I found myself connecting to it way more personally than even some of his bigger works, which, I mean, we can talk about maybe a little bit later in some of the other sections, but I was really surprised actually the range of stuff he was able to touch on within this narrative that seems really simple. I think actually has a lot more depth to it.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. And for me, Thumper, Mike, I think everything you're saying is absolutely true. But Thumper, for me, he represents sort of the awful truth, right? Like the absolute context, like lacking of any context, the blunt truth, and the fact that it begins stalking him is really compelling. And I think the reason you guys are bringing up prestige horror a lot is because, and you're all touching on this, but if you look at a movie like It Follows, right, like, or a movie like The Babadook, the monsters in those, my criticism of those movies, honestly, is that they sometimes feel more like themes than monsters, because the connections are so apparent. But that also makes for a richer viewing experience in a lot of ways, because you're finding these themes manifested in really unique ways that makes them really compelling. And this book does touch on that. So I feel like those comparisons are really apt. And so Thumper for me represents like the horror of Jamie's of power, like something that seems like it would be a net good, this idea that you can always get the absolute truth about something. It turns out to be in its own way kind of a curse too. And that to me was what I really took away from it. And I think the incest drop at the end is not necessarily the most elegant of like King's writing. Yeah. It is really based on the responses in our Discord and also my own personal response. I found it kind of baffling in that epilogue. I was like, what the hell is this? What just happened? But, the more I think on it, I see it really as, how do I phrase this? It's about the coldness of sort of absolute truth when it's divorced from all context. And sometimes the answers you get only spawn more questions. Because when he finds out that his uncle is his dad, that raises so many different questions, and it sends his mind flying down a million different avenues. Was it a consensual encounter between his mother and his uncle, or was it something else? Because the uncle he had early onset Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And so he's not well, and he's not able to he wouldn't be able to tell Jamie what really happened even if he wanted to. So Jamie can only ask the ghost. And the thing is, he could have asked the ghost more questions, but Jamie chooses not to. He says, the reason I didn't ask was simple. I didn't want to know. And I think it's that thing where he thinks you always want the answers. You always want the absolute truth. But sometimes when you get those answers, it can actually wreck you a little bit. There's there's a section I want to read here that I thought was interesting. On page 249, he says, I won't live my life with the pending question of whether or not I'm going to lose my mind in middle age. I won't live it with the shadow of that thing hanging over me either. It has drained the color from too many days. The fact that I am a child of incest seems laughably unimportant compared to the black husk of Thumper with the dead light shining out from the cracks in its skin. And I think that the idea of relating it to the cosmic, right? Like you were mentioning that, like the use of the deadlights here is more than just, it's more than just that Lovecraftian kind of horror. It's the idea that if you confront something, a truth, that it can break your brain in the same way that the deadlights do. I mean, Liz, what she sees in the mirror, he says, I would never want to know what she saw because it clearly destroyed her and broke her brain in the way that, these cosmic horrors do. And I think King is equating that with the idea of like whatever that absolute truth is. Like I do also like that it's kind of couched within he and his mother's relationship, which is, to me, I've mentioned in my review earlier, it's sort of the beating heart of the book. It's a really beautifully drawn relationship, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more later. But I think that, that sometimes having all the answers is actually enough to drive you crazy. And that's sort of what he's saying in the end is he's like, I'm going to stop asking for answers, so.
Well, it's like our boy Jack Nicholson in the Lakers jersey. He might say, you can't handle the truth.
Oh my God. What a deep cut reference.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Randall. I also think it'd be one thing if he mentioned this really early on and like leaned on that the whole time, but it wasn't necessarily like this graceful thing. I almost thought when the uncle said yes, like that's all we were going to get. And that they were never going to talk about it. Maybe it's just, I just watched this miniseries where that also kind of happens at the very end, like you realize, but you kind of know the whole time, oh, well, obviously this is what's going on. And not in a bad way. Like it was very good. It was very depressing. But I felt like that in this. Like, the more they brought up the uncle, and the more they brought up who's his father, I don't know who my father is, I was like, it's probably the uncle. So when they mentioned it at the end, it wasn't too big of a reveal, but I didn't know how much they really needed to go into it. So when he goes into it, I thought, what are we doing? But then, immediately retracts that and is like, actually, I don't know, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. But, yeah, what did you guys think about the whole thing about, all these rumors about children of incest or XYZ, and here's this cool character Jamie that we've all kind of like liked now at the end of this, and and he happens to be a product of incest, but that doesn't define him. Or do you think that that's what he was trying to say with that, or did you pull something else from that?
I mean, that's how I think it comes into like the narrative about trauma, because like so much of battling trauma is not letting it take over your life, right? It's something that you have to contend with. It's something that you have to meet face to face, which is kind of what he says about, Thumper, in the sense that he's got to contend with him at some point. And I think that kind of goes into this idea of like, well, okay, great. I found this out. This isn't going to be me. This isn't my life. This is, I am my own, my own person. I feel like that's a part and parcel of where that comes from. Is that he's not going to let this ruin his life. He's not going to let this this truth absolutely cripple him. But at the same time, it is a lesson to know that like our boy Uncle Ben says, with great power comes great responsibility. He's going to keep digging. You're not going to like what you're going to find. So yeah, that's kind of how I took it.
Yeah, I just found it. I guess when I talk about the inelegance, that's kind of where it comes in, which is it almost started to feel like, I don't know, like a PSA almost. Like, like it was just that, and it's not that the sentiment isn't good and correct and all of that, but it just kind of started to feel like, let's learn about children of incest. Yeah. And it comes at the very end of the book, and it felt almost like he was reciting text that you would find on a website or something. It just, so I struggled with that aspect of it. I thought the sentiment was great, but I think that's part of why the revelation drops and it feels so awkward, right? Is because it almost feels like he's he's trying to cram too much information. He's like, I just dropped this huge bomb, but guess what? It's not that bad. It's not that bad. And I feel like I'm watching, I don't know, it felt like he was writing to the audience more than he was the actual book.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
No, I thought the same thing too.
Yeah. What else did you think about the ending, Rachel?
I mean, cop-out's not the right word. I feel like that's too strong, but I got the same impression. I was like, I feel like he's making excuses for how he can get away with this logic. Like, no, listen, you guys, like, incest doesn't always mean this. Like, see this, right. It's okay. And because the rest of the book I thought was speaking actually like really beautifully to some bigger picture issues, I felt like this was really heavy-handed almost.
Yeah.
Like he didn't need to be so explicit in like, no, this is what it is. This is how it works. It's like, I get it. Give your readers a little bit more trust in what they can interpret from this. Because
if you were playing it more vague, it would actually be more organic. Like I don't think it's an elegant delivery whatsoever. I think a lot of it works mostly in hindsight, which is, I guess, par for the course considering the entire construct of this book is based on hindsight. But I think that. It when you look at it in the because when I first read it, it was just so jarring, and I think one of the reasons why also is that, and this is something I guess I'll just keep beating like a dead horse this episode, is that I do feel like he was trolling us. Like I do think that there is an aspect of we're gonna hint at this dad. This guy has supernatural abilities. Ooh, where have you heard this before? In The Shining, in Doctor Sleep, and half a dozen fucking books where I have like these type of characters in, especially in The Dark Tower, like. Usually when you talk about these type of powers, there are some sort of links, right? And like the fact that there's literally a mention of it comes from the father, doesn't it? And then like, ooh, who's his father? Like, it did feel like did it feel? Yeah, exactly. Like I thought that like there might be some sort of revelation in that respect. So like when I got to the end, I was actually expecting like, kind of like another big revelation in the same way that the Chud was. And then instead we saw incest, and I was like, I have to text them now.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, Mike. And it's funny though, because when I was thinking, I was like, oh, we're going to find out about the dad.
Yeah.
Like that, when the first thing that came into my mind was, and I think it was just because I had encountered the Ritual of Chud stuff and the Deadlight stuff. So I was like, okay, this book is part of, this larger, I guess to me, when I was reading it, I was like, well, this reemergence of the Deadlights can't just exist in this book. So I was like, maybe this is in a way connected to Billy Summers, And so then I was like, maybe his dad is Billy Summers.
But not once.
Just absurd.
So not once though did you ever think like this is definitely going to end with incest?
No.
Yeah.
And that's that. And so I just remember, and I like read it to my wife.
See, that's so funny.
I was like, what? See, that's so wild that you thought that, Mac, because in the Discord and everything, everybody's like, what the fuck?
It's because I literally just binge watched that.
No spoilers.
I'm spoiling it.
Yeah, you can't spoil.
Game of Thrones?
I mean, it's a mini series, and I won't say what it is, but it's a mini series where the whole time the main character doesn't know who his father is, and he gets this manuscript that his mother gives him and all this stuff, whatever. Anyways, he finds out that he's a product of incest at the end. And so that was like a huge theme, but they do a very good job of like drawing that out. But you kind of, if you're reading and you're looking for it, you kind of start to pick up like, yeah, I think this is what's going on, and this is why he doesn't know. So I think I just had that in the back of my mind. So when they introduced the uncle character and you knew the mother was, in a female relationship, I kind of started thinking, well, maybe it's the uncle. And I'd forgot it by the time they introduced it, because for a while it goes away. You know what I mean? It's you're sort of thick into the crime story at that point. So it was a surprise that he revealed it the way he did with the ghosts and stuff. But I kind of just, I don't know. I wasn't thinking it was Johnny Smith the whole time. I think I thought that when they first introduced, like, who's the father, but then as they kept bringing the uncle back in, I was like, okay, why are we bringing this uncle?
Yeah, there was definitely like that was clearly being set up. But listeners, we look forward to your guesses as to what miniseries Mac was watching.
Well, Mac was.
They're going to spoil it. They're going to just mention it. Yeah,
I think Mac maybe.
It's really good. It's just really depressing.
You have a psychological link. Maybe you're Jamie Conklin yourself.
I do want to say too, I think like it took me a while sitting with the ending to really, something else bothered me about it. And I think it's the fact that it is the father. Like this whole book develops this really beautiful relationship between like Jamie and his mom. And his mom's such an important presence. And there's so much of himself that he gets from her, and to find out at the end that like, oh, it's the dad, like maybe he gets this gift from his dad, like maybe all this stuff, it kind of draws the attention away from her in a weird way. And
Sure.
it was kind of a little disappointing to be like, well, why couldn't it somehow, I mean, I guess it is tied to her. That's what's so awful about it, but
kind
like
of his same family.
I think it's looked at as a sort of gift, and I don't know. It would have been nice to like throw the mom some credit for that rather than taking all the attention away and putting it all on the dad at the end.
It could have been a lot like the ending of Rookie of the Year, when he like he's like throwing the ball and then like he realized that it was actually his mother that had like the really strong arm at the end. It's like, Mom.
We need someone to like keep tabs on all the references Mike makes in any given episode, because it would be such a diverse list. I think if we want to pivot slightly, Mike, you mentioned earlier you were quoting Uncle Ben. You said, with great power comes great responsibility. I think that the idea of the responsibility is something that I also think is interesting and powerful here. And it's something that I feel like he's been exploring a lot in his recent works. I mentioned this when I read a snippet of my AV Club review, but it seems like a theme that King is very into these days, is this concept of someone coming to realize the weight of the power they possess and eventually coming to control it. We see this in Gwendy's button box. We see this in Mr. Harrigan's phone from If It Bleeds last year, and The Institute as well. And I'm sure many other books. But yeah, it becomes a lot about how when you are blessed with sort of this power, what can it do to you mentally or psychologically? I mean, we see that in Dr. Sleep too. And I think he's got a much more hopeful outlook than perhaps he used to. If you think back to earlier books like Carrie, books like The Dead Zone, these are books where the power that this person had gained more or less resulted in their demise. They never quite learned to control it, or they at least, chased it to a place where it resulted in them, as in Johnny Smith, not emerging. And so, but he seems to have a more hopeful kind of, view these days, in that in a lot of these stories, it's about these people who are tempted by the decision to wield this supernatural power for what it can be worth. I mean, I especially think this is so connected to Mr. Harrigan's phone. Mac, 100%. Rachel, have you guys read that?
I haven't. No.
It's interesting. It's the first story in If It Bleeds, and it's about a kid who basically gets a haunted cell phone from his neighbor who has a mysterious past, and basically can connect with this person after they die via the phone. And it almost has that monkey's paw kind of idea. It's kind of like, you can use this thing that could help you and save you, but it has bad side effects. It will also hurt you in other ways. And so, whereas the characters, I think, used to succumb to those powers, now he's writing characters that are a bit savvier, or at least learning the hard way how best to use their powers. So that was something else I thought was interesting, especially when you frame it through this concept that he's lived with it his whole life, so he doesn't understand the weight of it,
I did think about that a lot, and I tried to like figure out, well, what does that say about King politically, and spiritually? If you go back to his older books like Carrie and The Dead Zone, you're right. I mean, all of these are curses, and maybe they're not so much curses, but they end up being cursed arcs for them. With Carrie, she uses her powers to take down herself and those that wronged her. Johnny using his powers to inevitably save the future, which, sacrifices himself. And when you look about that sort of inherited power that we see in these later stories, they do come from a more holistic place, and I wonder what that says about where King's at mentally right now. What does it say about the world? Is he just not trying to be punching up to the man, or is he just trying to live alongside it and fight the long fight,
I think it has a lot to do with, I kind of liken it to superhero we talked about Marvel before, but it's all about having a power and learning to control it. And that's so popular these days, is taking something that was either thrust upon you or, magically put upon you or whatever, and then dealing with it and owning it and then using it for good. And I think that you're seeing that a lot more with this stuff in this sense, even with Jamie doesn't want to use this power. He doesn't want to use it, but he realizes that lives are at stake, decides to use it. And it kind of becomes like the Johnny Smith, in the sense that okay, I'm going to help this guy, but he doesn't die at the end. He doesn't have to sacrifice himself. He's going to continue on. This could be the beginning of more Conklin, quests.
The Conklin tales.
Yeah. Exactly.
Rachel, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think I personally always see it speaking more to his issues with addiction and how, in his past, maybe as he was fighting and going through that, maybe his outlook was a little bit darker. Yeah. And he obviously had a lot more to lose when he was navigating that. But now, as some time has passed, maybe he's looking at it a little bit differently and seeing that, it's always an issue. It's always there, but there is a potential for navigating it in a safe and, even a healthy way and dealing with it, that there is hope.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, and I think too, just to, like you said, it's always there. I think that's the thing about Thumper too, is the monster is sort of, he could still whistle for it, at the end. It still exists for him, and he still might have to reckon with this thing again in the future. And so I think that is something that he's leaving us with, which is that he hasn't fully gained control of his power, but he has the ability to sort of wield it again if he wants to. But it seems kind of inevitable that no matter what, he's going to have to confront this thing again.
And that's such an adult point of view. And that's what I think makes this such a more impactful coming of age story, because King's coming at it from, having lived on this earth for 70 something years. And, to your point, Rachel, I think his approach to life and the future is a lot different, from the point of view of someone that's come out of addiction than those that are in the throes of it. As someone who suffered, from addiction himself, for myriad things, you do have that sort of sense of every new day is just one more I get, as opposed to actually planning long term, And I think that once you're beyond that, you have that hindsight to know, I did suppress this, I did kill this, but it could come back at any moment. But I know that there's going to be tomorrow, and I know there's going to be next week, and I know there's going to be a few months from now. And that's a lot different. And that's the greatest disparity and the greatest distinction between being in it and being outside of it. And I think that a lot of that does come from him, being 70 years older and knowing that, look, when you think the world is ending, it most likely it's not. You're going to be here for another long time.
It's like, it's like Trainspotting too. It's like when they tell you have 30 more years, what do you do? You have to start, it's a different outlook, and you're like, oh, I'm still alive. I'm still here. I guess all this stuff was making it out to be so bad, and it wasn't necessarily, in certain ways, I think absolutely he's drawing on that. Yeah. And looking at it from that. So thanks for pointing that out, Rachel, because I think that's totally what it is.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to pivot over to our next section, where we discuss the structure and format.
Look at me.
Structure and Format, we discuss a book's structure and format. Later is a first-person account that is told as if it's being recounted by someone 30 years on. I think he's actually in his 20s. I was thinking of Joyland, where the character's like in his 50s. But yeah, it's very similar actually to the structure of Joyland in terms of it being sort of reflection on youth from an older, wiser narrator. Do you guys like it when King writes in first person compared to, third person?
I do. I personally like it a lot. Like I like Joyland. I like Dolores Claiborne a lot, and kind of the way that allows you to get to know the character so intimately because you're seeing the whole thing from their viewpoint. And I think, I always enjoy those stories.
Mm-hmm.
I do too. Mostly, I think that I think the thing for me though is like, as soon as this starts, I kind of am like, oh, well, I guess we know the lead's okay, unless he was a ghost telling the truth the whole time, and that was the big reveal later on. But like, I kind of, I don't know. For me, in that sense, it's fine because I know obviously the story better be good. Because if I already know that this character's never going to be in peril, even when they're in peril, then something else better be like interesting enough to keep me going. And it was, and I felt like there was enough stuff introduced where it was like, it didn't matter to me that Jamie was seemingly going to survive all this. It was more like, what horror are you talking about? Like, what is happening? You know what I mean? So for me, I dug it. I don't think he needed to do the whole constantly referencing later in the beginning like that. Yeah, that kind of got old really quick. I was like, I might have noticed that, but I don't know.
I was gonna say, does the multiple later references, did that add or subtract for you?
It did nothing.
Subtracted.
It did nothing. And then what really bothered me though is that now check it. Like, I was like, come on, what is this, a fucking live journal? Like
Nickelodeon.
I'll keep my misery to misery, but some other stuff.
I think for me, this is a perfect format for him because it allows King to do like his greatest flex, which is his foreshadowing. And he's talking in hindsight. King just gets off on it. Like, he just loves the fact that like he's like, he could just throw in things like, that's when everything fell apart. I said this is a horror story. I'm going to go see Burkett and, let's just say that's the last meal I ever gave him or something like that. Just like things like that. He loves doing that,
I do love those punches. I think I wrote some of those in the word processor. He loves doing that. Those little stuff like, and then I was like, I never talked to him again.
He's just like, and when he's writing it, he looks just like like Richard Dreyfuss at the end of Stand By Me. He just like stands up and he like stares at his fucking computer and he's just like,
got him.
Owen's in the background, like, come on, let's go to the lake. I love it, and I get excited too. I think the thing that's really awesome about the structure and format in this is that Jamie keeps this like, he kind of writes this in the same way that we would recap TV shows. Like, he doesn't linger too much in each episode. He kind of just keeps things going and going. Yeah. And I don't know if that was King trying to be emblematic of like a teen or 20-something recounting his teens and stuff, but it worked.
I was going to say something along those lines, which is he mentions in the epilogue that he feels his writing has gotten better throughout the writing of the book. And I think that's interesting because I do think it's true as well. I think that the book, it almost reminds me of like, the Harry Potter books, which is that the books got more advanced as the books went along and they kind of grew along with their readers. I mean, obviously this isn't the same, this is just one book, but I do think in terms of being a coming of age novel, it is sort of a neat trick to, allow the prose to grow along with the character as it goes on. And so that to me was an interesting sort of flourish that he did here. I wouldn't say it was necessarily like, it didn't go from, a YA novel to like Ulysses or something, but it did evolve in a way where I was like, I do see the growth here, and I do see like the language becoming a bit more deep and insightful and things of that nature. So I think too, though, I don't know, like I was thinking, Mike, about what you were saying though, is that this does move really quick, but in a way I did sort of miss some of when King does his third person, the digressions that he can allow himself to make, sort of the moments where he lingers on, a fleeting thought or a bit of scenery or something like that, he doesn't really allow him, like Jamie's not the kind of writer or person who would probably do that. So
yeah, I was going to ask you guys about, some of you read Colorado Kid and Joyland. Is that the same? His approach to those books? Are they in this narrative, and are they more punchy and don't go into those digressions?
Joyland is very similar in terms of how it's structured and things of that nature.
Joyland's first person also.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
think
first person. It moves quick. Yeah.
And to me, it makes sense for these specific hard crime books because that's, like a detective story or like a film noir story, how it's always from like the detective's point of view. Like it fits these books, I think, for what this label is specifically trying to put out. So
yeah,
that makes a lot more sense why it was under this label, even though it was kind of horror-esque. It did definitely kind of have that noir feel. And I think also, like people reading this or kids reading this these days, like I know a lot of people that like slow burns, but I think there's a lot of attention span issues with people lately, and I think that this probably works in his favor in terms of like new readers coming in, because it really just punches to, if you want to go read it if you really want to sit there and really go into the depths of like kids and ponder this and ponder that. I think all of that's there. This is kind of a good gateway.
This is for the kids who saw it and then saw the size of the book and said, no, thanks. And then they pick up later. Hey, this new one's short.
What's going to be wild?
I'll take an Echo. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love Night Shift.
And they're like,
I'll take an Echo of it.
I think in like 25 years from now, we'll just be like hanging out and like somebody will be reading a book and oh, Stephen King, you're a big fan. My first book was Later. It's like, wow, you really got into Stephen King through Later? That's awesome,
But dude, I see that on the Discord, people will talk about the books that got them into King, and it'll be really surprising ones sometimes. Like it'll be, like Dr. Sleep, or it'll be...
I can see that.
Like I think I saw somebody say like Rose Madder was their first, which is so wild to me.
Mine was Talisman, and I feel like that's so weird.
That is, yeah.
I think that's great though. I mean, I think that's why King has lasted so long, is because, his stuff just spans so many different genres. I mean, people coming in reading, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, and then they really like that. And then
there's so many different ways.
Exploring different avenues. Yeah,
there's so many different ways into King that I think it's easy for people to get into him. Any other thoughts on structure and format before we talk about the characters? Cool. Let's pop over to a section we call Heroes and Villains.
I'm gonna have to kill this fucking clown. Welcome to the Losers Club, asshole!
Lots of heroes and villains in this one. Many to discuss. I think we've talked a lot about Jamie so far. We can obviously pepper more in about him, but we haven't talked much about Tia, his mother, who I think is one of the real stars of this book. So what do we make of Tia, Mike?
I really connected with her. I think that she actually is really the kind of spiritual main character of the novel. Like when you think about like the conflicts that are going on, they're all really her, like raising a son, contending with her own guilt and trauma, like, the tumultuous relationship to Liz, the financial drought that she has to bear from the recession, losing the clients, like the whole agency is on her. Everything's on her shoulders. And we're kind of like seeing this like periphery narrative being told. And I'm like worried about her majority of the book, and I don't know if that's just because I'm a latchkey kid. I come from a divorced family, and I saw a lot of like both parents in this strife of just knowing that it's all on your shoulders, and I don't know. I was mostly interested in her. So like you were saying before, Randall, like I actually wish I got more with like Jamie and Tia, just because I really love their scenes together. Like those are the ones that like the check-ins really hit me reading this book. So.
Yeah, the comforter in chief. I like Tia. I think she's a Wire fan, so we connected there. I do really love that relationship, but I think it's also very telling of. I mean, when you grow up in that realm and your parent is like that and dealing with all this stuff, you become very much like, I get why Jamie is very much the way he is. You know what I mean? You see that. You see him pulling away or not wanting to share this with her anymore. Like he's at one point he stops telling her about the dead people because he doesn't want to burden her with one more thing. And it kind of forces him to grow up really quickly. And I think a lot of people deal with that, you know. A lot of people come from, you know, a lot of hardships and backgrounds and where they feel like they have to grow up quickly. And I don't know, I connected with Jamie on that level. And in doing that, I also, like, my parents are very much, I remember having to like budget my Christmas lists and stuff. And it wasn't anything they did, but I knew just from the situations that, you know, it wasn't, you know, like all fun and games. Like they worked their asses off. So yeah, it was a very realistic relationship, I thought, between the two.
Yeah, I would add that that I think with King, there's such a history in his writing of troubled relationships between mothers and their children. I feel like so often mothers are, you know, I don't know, fraught, shrill, angry, judgmental, monstrous. I mean, obviously in his early books like Carrie and Salem's Lot, but, you know, in a lot of his later books too. And so I don't know, there was something refreshing about seeing this really positive relationship that, you know, that wasn't perfect, but the sort of strife that would arise between them was always just very understandable, normal stuff that was happening against this backdrop of very, you know, supernatural, over the top kinds of things. And their relationship just felt very lived in. And I think what King captured so well was the idea that it really is just them. Like, there's no dad in the picture, there's no extended relatives, and Liz, who is Tia's girlfriend, is, you know, she's not really a family member. Like, she's somebody who's around and she's fun, but she's not that. She's, you know, they're always fighting and they're drinking and things aren't really like idyllic on that front. So in the end, the only people these two have for each other is themselves. And that's also true because we don't really see Jamie has any friends, really. Like, he's a pretty lonely kid for the most part. Isn't it
weird though that, like, historically King has that relationship with mothers in his books when his father is the one that kind of, you know, jump ship a little bit? And it's just odd.
Well, plenty of deadbeat dads in his books too.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Yeah. I don't know. I do think it came from such a place of love, and like the little things that he adds on here and the nuances of the relationship, and you know, I don't have to list them all out, but they're just sprinkled all throughout this book, really come from like not like he's just kind of welding these character descriptions, but like actually like things that he might have taken from his own upbringing, or like, you know, maybe seen something that he saw Tabby with the children. You know, they all come from like real places. You know, like they felt very real.
I was just going to say that maybe, you know, now he has the benefit and experience of watching Tabby with the kids and seeing that totally different aspect of it. And, you know,
and his kids,
not saying he was
kids.
absent and Tabby had to deal with everything, but like, you know, I think to some extent, probably for a little bit. And yeah, it's interesting to see the shift there. Yeah.
I do love how much we get to know her through Jamie's eyes, though. I think that's so interesting. You know, people, they always say that, you know, kids are so honest and brutal and they can really see to the heart of it. And I think that seeing her through Jamie's eyes, seeing her, how she handles difficult situations. I mean, we've all been there with our parents, you know, seeing them go through stuff and you can tell that they're trying to hide it or not let you in. But as a kid, you feel it. And I think that that's a really interesting way to get to know her, is through Jamie, and just seeing that, you know, he is her number one at the end of the day. Like, Liz is her partner or whatever, but, you know, she crosses that line and it's done. Like, Jamie comes first, and seeing that is really touching and just also really heartbreaking. I think reading it as an adult, just like how you would handle that situation, and, you know, recalling situations with your own family dynamics and stuff. It's an interesting way to get to know that character, but also really beautiful.
Would you say that you bought her relationship with Liz? Would you say that that was something that felt, you know, natural or organic or believable to you?
I think it did. What I like kind of did like about it was it felt, I mean, it was a relationship that took a bad turn, but at the same time, they were still dedicated to each other. And Jamie was a part of that. She had brought Liz into their house, and she doesn't seem like a character who would have done that lightly. So if that happened, then were probably pretty serious at that point. So even though it took a weird turn, and obviously she was into some bad stuff, sometimes it's not easy to break up with a partner, especially somebody that you have a history with, So I do believe in that regard. That
to your point about like the point of view, right? The same way that Jamie builds up Tia, he's also building up Liz. And that's already sort of like a fractured relationship in the sense that, like, all right, well, there's this other that's coming into the house, and it's not a cliche to say that most kids are distrustful of, the romantic love interests of any of our parents, when they come in, it's like the John Connor, like, you're not my dad, Todd, like that type of thing. And I know that from firsthand, just from like my mom's boyfriends and, my dad's girlfriend, now my stepmother. Yeah. And so I think that comes from, I think that the fact that like we even get any sense of like that a positivity from Liz speaks to the fact that, like, she wasn't all that bad, because if she was all that bad, then we probably would have just seen her as this like villain from day one. And that's not really the case. He does give her some nuance,
I think the great thing about it is that right from the get-go, Jamie's constantly saying, I loved a lot of things about Liz, and I didn't like, and I disliked. It's very gray, and that's how the real world is. Yep. And I like the fact that Tia and Liz were very different people. I mean, I think they got in a fight about like Obama's citizenry, like, or just the fact that she ended up being a dirty cop and like a racist,
Liz as like a Republican.
He uses that to villainize her conveniently midway through the book.
Yeah, but I did think that I was like, I can see, like sometimes you get like enraptured with someone, and before you know it, you're in a seemingly serious relationship, and then these things start to come out slowly, and you might fight about them, but it's not enough to necessarily break your relationship, because all the other things are working, and you find it, opposites attract, and I don't know, it felt believable to me still, but yeah, I don't know. I guess I think most people live in the gray area, so I liked the fact that it wasn't just cut and dry. Like she was a bad person. I think there were things there.
I agree with everything you guys are saying. I will say though, like Liz's kind of just turn to like coke snorting drug smuggler. It was a bit abrupt for me. Yeah. I struggled with it a little bit.
Time period, right?
Wait, what?
Wasn't there a good time period between, or no?
Yeah, but still,
it's a lot. She becomes a caricature.
Yeah.
She
like
goes. She goes from like maybe a dirty, slightly dirty cop to like she has no septum. Like it's just like okay.
Yeah,
she's like Artie Lang.
I mean, you do enough drugs, like. No, I mean, I'm being serious. We're looking at the cover here, and Liz is like out of control. Yeah. I mean, maybe I don't buy it as much.
I think it's a little tall tale at points. I think it's King does this with Elevation also, because he has a queer couple in Elevation. And a lot of it, I think there's enough nuance there to buy it, but a lot of it does feel very like I don't think it's fair to say, but like it does feel like very like, see, look at this is it's kind of a progressive couple here. Like it feels a little call to action sometimes, but like the only thing that really drove me nuts about Liz is like when she starts talking about Mark Knopfler to a fucking teenager. And
I knew you were gonna bring that up. I knew that was gonna come up at some point.
It's so fucking lame. Like it's just like, come on, like, and then the way she talks about The Wire, it's just like it's like as if like King like was copying and pasting like write-ups from EW from like the aughts. It's just like, who the fuck talks about Mark Knopfler when they're talking about guitars? I'm sorry, like
once
especially like
once they brought up Mark Knopfler, all I could think of was like at the end when they open like the vault and they look at like the photos of like what Donnie Biggs did. It's just that lead up, that drum lead up all the way in
From Money to Nothing.
Yeah, Money to Nothing, and then all of a sudden it's like.
Oh my god!
No, but I laughed when I saw that because it was a Dire Straits, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of those moments where I felt like, I think you're a little. You are behind, King.
Yeah.
I don't even know if Liz would be into this, but I don't know. I mean, I knew exactly who it was. I listened to that stuff too. So here and there.
Well,
but...
I would almost say that I feel like I didn't even realize this woman on the cover, this foxy babe leaning on the car, was like supposed to be Liz until King had a chapter where he was like, well, how do I describe Liz? Well, she's pretty foxy, and he talks about her being super hot. And then I was like, oh, so this woman is supposed to be Liz, which I don't know. It's like, this is framed to me like she's some kind of femme fatale, like kind of character, that there's something a little bit more mysterious about her. That's what this cover image sort of perpetuates. And then she just ended up being a character really not like what I was expecting. Yeah. And, that's not a bad thing necessarily, but I just would say that I struggled a little bit with some of the shifts in her character, though at the same time, like, I never didn't buy it. I was always on board with it and on board with sort of that journey. But I feel like, if King maybe had allowed himself to go long like he usually does, if this was a 500-page book instead of a 250-page one, we probably would have seen more of Liz's journey towards this like dark, ending, which, we probably didn't need, honestly, at least in this story. So.
Yeah. And there's that scene in the book that like this, where he comes across her and she's leaning on the car, like it's right out of the book.
Yeah.
But I think what I like in this too is when he's a kid, this is how he sees Liz. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? So like when he's older, I don't think Liz was ever this. I think that's just how he perceived it, because that's how he remembers her. The one vision that he remembered seeing her once, like that's stuck with his version of her. And I mean, I'm acting like there's a lot more time that went by, because I can't really recall exactly how much time went by before he saw her again. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't bug me too much, but I hear you. I totally hear you.
Didn't she? I know you love this, Randall, because you reference this a bunch. But didn't she kind of remind you of like Dokes from Dexter a little bit? You're like, oh, Jamie, hey, I'm back, and like pops up, and it's just like, oh God, this isn't going to be good for anyone. And it just felt like, like Dokes has Dexter's card. She had Jamie's card and is just always using it against him. And it just felt so ostentatiously villainy like that in a way. Like it was just convenient. Like, all right, well, we've got the Chud thing situated. What next? Hey, Jamie, like the car revs up, comes. Plot armor, like it just... It felt a little convenient sometimes. And then it didn't help the fact that like she does feel so cartoonish by the end. I mean, the shit that she's saying, like I was reading it aloud while I was reading it, just being like, who talks like this? Yeah, like,
we'll get to that. We'll get to that, I think, in a future section.
Yeah.
No, but similar to what you're saying, Mike, the New York Times review actually discussed how the plot comes together like it's like Lego blocks almost. And that kind of reminds me of what you're saying, which is that things just feel a bit convenient. And I think that is due to the fact that he was trying to keep this story tighter. I mean, if he was writing it for Hard Case Crime, he was trying to do something that was 250 pages and not 500 pages. And I do think King, it's actively hard for him, I think, to not go long, because he loves to go long. And so, yeah, I do think when he does squeeze things, when he does have a plot that is, multiple intersecting storylines, I think when he doesn't have that space to sort of pontificate a little bit maybe, or daydream a little bit, then yeah, it looks like these pieces just sort of click together, in a very convenient fashion. Other characters, what do we think about Mr. Thumper? It's pretty mean.
Love him.
Yeah.
He's a good villain.
I think a lot of it is because we were
doing...
Well, I think because we were doing our fucking Saw rewatch at the time, I just imagined like Tobin Bell wandering around the entire... Yeah, I couldn't get him out of my head. It was ridiculous. I started laughing at moments because we just kept passing on, like, in our text threads, we were like posting like photos of like Tobin Bell playing guitar or something like that. So I was just like imagining like this Tobin Bell wandering around, sauntering like, Jamie, I'm going to follow you everywhere for the rest of my life. I couldn't get him out of my head.
I pictured like David Thewlis.
Ooh, I could see that too. That'd be awesome.
See that.
Like a younger version. Yeah, I don't know. I thought the introduction of that character was really interesting. I thought the idea that you were going to have to talk to this like serial killer now, and just all that stuff, I thought was just really, really fun and cool. And I was like, oh, this is King like in his element. Like, this is great. And then that was before all the Deadlight stuff. I was just like, before I knew that was what was really going on, I just liked the idea that this guy is so evil or something's off that he's able to just hang on and linger and be this presence that shouldn't be.
Well, having half of his face blown off helps, yeah.
I just like, there's some ideas or just some moments, but I'll get into in the cemetery. But I don't know. I dug Thumper.
I would say that you guys are going to laugh at this, but it's 100% true. The character who I could not keep imagining Thumper as was that old, like, pedophile on Family Guy. You remember that? Who would like talk like when his I something in the description made me think of that character, and of course I could not shake it the rest of my reading. So I was thinking basically of a non-animated version
I was going to say, was he animated in your head?
No, but that would be funny though.
Whoa, is this like Tom and Jerry?
Rachel, how did you picture Thumper?
So I've been watching that Confession Killer doc on Netflix. So he was very like Henry Lee Lucas to me, just kind of gross and a little haggard, but also, because Henry Lee Lucas also had that smile that was just like really eerie, and I imagine Thumper definitely had that, and just come here. Very creepy.
There's definitely something very I think just that's not character that doesn't have a lot of dimension, but doesn't really need to. This is just a character who is a vessel for evil.
Yeah.
And I think King sort of, not really engaging with him when he was actually alive and allowing us to first view him with the side of his face blown off and sort of these, I don't know, just like the gnarliest descriptions of his appearance, I think was actually really helpful for the character and just sort of being this vessel for evil. Worked really well for me.
How did you imagine the final form, when he comes back in that mansion?
Well, it was the Family Guy old man, but
just crisped
with all of the beams of light flying out of him.
Okay,
yeah,
all right, yeah.
Like in the It miniseries when they knock Pennywise's like hole in his head and all the light beams out. That's what I was thinking about.
I got a lot of real. I mean, I'll talk about it in the cemetery, I guess. I'll save it to the cemetery.
Well, I was just going to say, I kind of likened it to American Werewolf in London. Like every time you saw him, he's a little bit more deteriorated, a little more rotted, so that by the end he was just like this shell of a thing where light's coming out of it. You know what I mean? Like that's where I kind of tracked him.
Yeah, that was such a cool image.
Eerie.
Biggie Smalls or Donnie Biggs. What is his
Donnie Biggs, Donnie Marsden.
Donnie Marsden, the man himself. This was a character who was very ostentatious and gross. Just wildly large and ball gag in his mouth, very filthy. Mac, you brought it up earlier, but I actually quite liked his ghost, right? Or his dead person, because clearly from what we learn about this character, this drug kingpin, he was like a giant monster, like, not unlike Thumper in his own ways, and just really evil, really shitty, a killer, a torturer of women, all these things. But as a dead person, he was like so meek, and there was something really pathetic about him. Like there's just so many good scenes or good moments in that final sequence where Jamie kind of turns around and then he's just there. Like he's kind of wandering and following him throughout the house so quietly. And that to me was really, really eerie. Just the idea of this very large, very meek ghost that was somebody very monstrous in real life. And they're so exposed when they're this dead person in a weird way. I don't know. I really dug that.
I love that sort of background peripheral. It's not even horror. It's just detail. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like those are the type of stuff that stick with me. I think like in terms of ghosts, like, you look back at like the Haunted Mansion, the Disney, and it's like the little things in the background that aren't part of like the actual main track plot that you're supposed to be seeing in the thing. That's the stuff that stays with me. And that's the same way. And I with his character, it was interesting too, because it's like, it kind of, the whole book reminds me a lot of Peter Jackson's The Frighteners. With the relationship with ghosts. And I felt like King has a really good way in this book of just being able to kind of dial up the tones a little bit, because like in that movie, sometimes the ghost interactions are hilarious, and sometimes they're really sad, and sometimes they're really scary. And what I liked about this final scene, and it's a chaotic scene in a story that has a lot of story in 250 pages, so there's a lot of stuff going on in that final act, but he does a really good job in like the delicate dance of tones there, you know? It's like, just think about all the shit that's going on. You have this like creature that's been hyped up this entire time coming back. On top of that, you have like Liz's death, and you have on top of that, this ghost is just kind of wandering around. The revelations that are
and
inside
his torture
office,
chamber,
in the torture chamber. I mean, there's just a lot going on there, and the fact that you could kind of just weld that little thing in there, this like remorseless ghost, kind of reminded me of like the way that Peter Jackson's able to kind of flip the script occasionally in that movie. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Any other thoughts on Biggie Smalls?
I did think it was interesting that you've got this guy, right? This larger than life character who in the physical world had this sort of facade of power. You know, he was this drug kingpin. He was at, you know, a higher level, as Liz was explaining. There's always somebody above him, but he was a pretty high up in the game. But once he crossed over, number one, he's dead. Number two, he's in his boxers. He's literally stripped of any sort of costume, any sort of like anything. And then he's also in a new unfamiliar territory. Like, you take away all of his powers in the physical mortal realm, and that's all been taken away. So you really see how like weak and unsure of himself he is, because it's unfamiliar. And I think that plays a lot into him just wanting to like leave, and he's embarrassed about you know the pictures, because you don't know what all this is going to mean in this new place, in this new space. There's no power there.
Right. I dug that a lot. What were you going to say, Mac?
Well, one thing I didn't like, and I think it was a big misstep almost, and I was going to save it for misery, but I don't know if I wrote it there. I'm going to forget it. But if ghosts are wearing the things that they had on when they died, why didn't he have the ball gag on permanently? Because that's how he died. He had it and he was wearing it. Like, I thought that was weird. It was only like clothing.
Touche.
I was like,
this is kind of like that Simpsons episode where the comic book guy asked the Itchy and Scratchy creators about the missing xylophone note or whatever.
I hope someone got fired
I think
for
that's
that.
valid. I think it's a valid point.
Probably one other character we should discuss is the professor, the one who sort of introduces the idea of the ritual of Chud to Jamie. This is kind of a kindly old man who used to live next door before they moved. And the book opens with his wife dying. And I think he's I don't know. I found this character. I usually don't like these sort of mentor old characters in King. Usually,
I was gonna say he's an archtype for sure.
He's an archetype for sure. But I don't know. I bought the bond. I bought the kids. I bought the kid admiration of him. And the idea. I think it helped by the idea that it didn't seem like Tia and Jamie let a lot of people into their orb, you know? And so I think by Professor Burkett, like, being this character who was close with both of them, and sort of serving this sort of grandfatherly role, I think, for, you know, a fatherly role for her and a grandfatherly role for him. I don't know. I bought it. It felt like a very tender relationship in a book that has, you know, is kind of built upon this one tender relationship. So, you know, I think it speaks to the idea that, I don't know, King still got it when it comes to character, because he can take these archetypal relationships and these archetypal characters, and in this instance, he, you know, really was able, I think, to elevate them to compelling people who have complicated inner lives. So
yeah, he's an older Jewish guy, right? You know, I think he's an older Jew.
I think you're projecting, but
it might be. But I feel he like got the mannerisms down. Like, it reminded me so much of like my grandparents and stuff growing up. But I love these type of characters in King's books. Like, I always, they're like very. I can't even think of one example of like a pairing where it doesn't work. But I just like think of like, you know, like Matt and Callahan and Salem's Lot, like Halloran in The Shining. Even like someone like Glenn Bateman, you know, my MVP of The Stand. Like, they are these characters that
picture this person,
right? Like, they have that sort of like, it's someone that King, I feel, has become in his older age, which is why I think he could still write these characters. Is because I think he actually has more in common with these characters at this point now. Like, if he went back to his books, I almost wonder like how he could write like a character like Matt or a character like Callahan in Salem's Lot now, with all the hindsight of being a 70-something-year-old, because like the way that he writes Martin in this, there's a sort of exhaustion that a lot of these type of characters don't have in his 70s and 80s books. And I think a lot of that is something that he's drilling in there. This is Psychoanalysis with Mike Roffman, trying to talk about Stephen King at any moment I can. But I did catch that this time. It felt like, and you kind of saw a lot of that in, you mentioned Mr. Harrigan's Phone. Like I got a lot of that last year with If It Bleeds. Yeah. These characters that aren't as sprightly anymore. But they're the same type of characters as Matt and Callahan, and those are characters that fought. They were on the front lines in those books. And
do you think that King has, teen boys in the neighborhood that he mentors and helps them discover themselves? Yeah, that sounds naughty, but it doesn't. I just mean like helping them like solve crimes or whatever.
Yeah. He probably like has them walk Molly,
helping them solve crimes.
They're all boy detectives.
I believe it.
It turns into Ghost World.
Hey, I had a question about Marty Burkett. They mention his daughter is in a mental institution because she tried to kill herself and her baby. I thought that was referencing something else, and maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe that's not true. But did any of you pick up on that? Were you thinking, oh, this is such and such from some other story?
Well, it seemed like such an aggressive thing to introduce. That I thought maybe it was a reference, but I didn't think too hard about it. But it did feel kind of like, oh, wow. Like, that's
it was just so specific. I thought, I was really trying to think. I was like, someone from like Tommyknockers? I don't know. I was trying to think about that.
Tommyknockers?
Well, there's that one lady, they go crazy and tries to kill her husband and all that stuff, and she's in
she's in a mental institution because she tried to kill herself and her kid and flew up in a spaceship, so
maybe it's like a link to the Institute and he's trying to build that out.
The killer is an interstellar being in this book, okay? I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility.
You just really want this book to intersect with Tommyknockers.
I do think that maybe it's just more general than that. This whole book, there's all these people, right? There's all these secrets that all these people are carrying. It's right there on the cover. Only the dead have no secrets, right? So, the mom's got her secrets and Jamie has his secrets. And I think this was just Mr. Burkett's secret that he's been living with. And even though you might know these people or you think that you know these people, they didn't know this giant, massive secret until he had passed.
Yeah.
So maybe it wasn't something specific, but just speaking more to the things that people carry around with them all the time.
Thank you for the rational analysis as we do stupid Tommyknockers bits.
Thank you. Because, I'm just saying thank you for that, though, because honestly, you read enough of these and you do these breakdowns, you're always looking for stuff like that. And I can't just look at it for what it is, which is what you said, which is totally makes sense. And yes, that's a much more enjoyable way of reading into that. You never know. This could be the beginning of again, this could be a Conklin Quest series.
Conklin Quest.
Where
oh my God.
He, gets abducted next book.
What if every book Stephen King writes from now on is Conklin Quest Volume 2, and it's
I read the beginning of the next book where they bring Conklin to this facility. He doesn't know where he is, and he finds out he's in New Mexico. Roswell.
Oh Lord!
And they're like this alien's finally dead. Talk to him. He's dead. He has to tell you the truth now. And Dead Men
I'd read that book.
Oh, I did like the Dead Men Tell No Tales thing that they mentioned. Because I like the idea that dead men don't tell tales because they have to tell the truth. And I just kind of thought that was fun that he threw that in.
I like
there.
that. Did you think at the end Jamie was going to take over the agency and then they're going to be like, we've been doing pretty good. We've moved back on to, where was this street that he was on, the main avenue or whatever, Park Avenue. We got our Park Avenue offices back and we got a few new clients and one of them's coming up today. And then he looks up and it's just like, Bill for 4:00. And it looks up and it's fucking Bill Denbrough or something like that.
Or I thought he was going to be like,
or Billy Summers.
I'm now. He's like, now I'm part of an agency that helps people with things like I have, and it's called The Shop.
Yeah.
And we have an interview with a man named Rainbird.
Rainbird's coming in. Oh my God, he's back.
Suddenly a Firestarter origin story.
Jesus Christ. So I have one more character
that's the connection everybody was waiting for.
What's the other character you wanted to discuss?
So I wanted to mention Regis Thomas because King, I feel, has a lot of fun with this character. It's one of the first interactions that we get that's like a long form with the ghosts. Obviously we had, the wife in the beginning, but with this was like one where you actually have an interaction. And this is like the more jovial side of things. This is like when it's still kind of punchy and fun and balmy. And I thought it was interesting that the King is so obsessed with this guy's falling pants.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's something that
for the pound
happened
cake.
to him. Yeah.
What is with that though? I don't get it. Like, do you think it's like an inside joke with another author that he knows that he like painted him as?
Or maybe he just wears pants like that when he writes, and Tabby's like, Steve, your dick's showing.
It's not that time of the day. I just thought it was very odd. I don't know. But I also thought that like the way that they talk about Regis's relationship with the Roanoke series and how he's trying to rush him out at the end kind of felt like King bringing some of that inside baseball from the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
Like how he had to
Loves
kind of
to
write
write
it up.
about writers.
He does.
Yeah.
He does.
What were you going to
All
say,
of this
Rachel?
book.
Oh, I can. I'm bringing my own dad into this. My dad is the kind of dad that like he'll lose some weight, but he refuses to buy new pants. So for some reason, I just had the image like, Regis like got healthy, but just can't buy new pants and just refuses. So they just keep like falling off him. He's got on this new diet for his new book tour. And then just like, but he's going to stick with the same old baggy pants.
It is a quirky little character, though, because he wears
like
this
that
little
too, yeah.
spelling bee sash as he writes too, which is just so strange. But yeah, I don't know. I love that whole sequence. I thought it was really charming. And man, King loves Roanoke. Like, I feel like he's referenced it in multiple books, and he also and we're going to cover Storm of the Century later this year, and that Roanoke kind of plays a role in that as well. No spoilers, but it's interesting. But he loves the whole Croatan or Croatoan carving in the tree, which I've always heard
is
is
mystery.
Well, I heard that it's not really a mystery at all. Like Croatoan was like the name of a nearby island. Or something.
But have some fun.
I know,
right?
Yeah. I'm always like, don't ruin the mystery for me.
Well, it is still kind of weird that the entire, the whole town vanished and all. But we don't have to go into Roanoke. Let's talk
We're
about
gonna go
Roanoke
into it
as a
plenty
character.
in the future for sure.
Is Roanoke a hero or a villain? I mean, it did take out most of its townspeople. Anyway.
Well, those books sounded mighty naughty. Lots of threesomes. In those
a little
books.
self-aware pound cake in there, I'd say.
I was gonna say I wrote that down. I put is King being is he being self-aware regarding the way he writes sex scenes, because there's a lot of making fun of how corny this guy's sex scenes are.
I was gonna say I saw someone post something, and it was like it might have been on our Discord, but it was like a comparison of like a Misery's Child book and like the cover of like a special edition of Later, which is a fake cover of the Roanoke, and it might have been fake, but it was like an edition of Later, but the cover was like a bodice ripper, like and the title was the Roanoke story or whatever the Roanoke story is in the book, and I thought, oh, that's fun, but then they put it next to this Misery Child's thing, and I was like, oh, maybe that's just fun they're having.
I think Regis was inspired by Paul Sheldon.
It was like Sheldon in this universe.
Well, how tempted do you think he was to like put Paul Sheldon in there for her to be like, I can't get A-list clients like Paul Sheldon or something like that.
He's like, well, we could do that, but I really want to say they watched Shawshank. Like, totally different.
Can't put too many references in.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that covers it for characters. So why don't we pop over to our next category, which we call misery.
She died. She just slipped away.
Slipped away! Slipped away! She didn't just slip away! You did it! 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 You murdered my misery!
Annie!
Here in Misery, we talk about the stuff that made us miserable. We've already touched on a few things. I think we're all probably gonna, talk it to some degree about the pop culture references, which just feel a little bit goofy. But did you guys have any other miseries that were up there for you, Mac?
This is just the whole thing about like kids, like people don't talk like this. My name is Jamie Lee Conklin, and once upon a time, I drew a Thanksgiving turkey that was the absolute cat's ass.
Yeah.
He says that several times, and it bothered me every time. Like, as black as a cat's asshole.
I was like,
what are you talking about?
I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that. Like,
it's like the happy crappy shit that he puts in the stand. It's like these little sayings that he puts his characters on. And you're like, I've never heard of anyone say these sayings.
I know. I was laughing at some of the stuff that Jamie says. Like, he at one point, he says like, oh, and he didn't say boo about it.
Yeah.
And then he describes something else as Maximo. It's just stuff that I found kind of funny.
I agree. I think some of it's like, okay, maybe that's something he picked up from his mom. But I was like, I don't even know if Tia would say that. I think like and if that's too much information, deal with it. He says that all the time. It's just like, oh, come on, like
he's a sassy kid. I don't know if I'd want to hang out with this guy.
Speaking of pop culture references, this was the worst one for me, so it's the only one I'll read. But page 195, we were a little over an hour away from our final destination, and just thinking that gave me the creeps. Final Destination being a particularly gory horror movie me and my friends had watched. Not up there with the Saw flicks, but still fucking grim. And we were watching the Saw movies at the time we were reading this, so very exciting.
I tried to jot down all of them. I mean, I don't like the fact that he calls to action The Sixth Sense. I just think it's too cheeky.
It doesn't. Yeah, go ahead.
It just feels like I get it. Like, you're talking to dead people. You said that you saw dead people. The first thing we're gonna think of is The Sixth Sense. I guess he's trying to like beat us to the punch or something like that. It just felt too lame to me. I don't know.
That was my main problem with the book. Was that he not only calls that out.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, Jamie's first experience is like beat for beat the same scene from the trailer of Sixth Sense when he sees the jogger dead.
Yep.
As he sees the person dead on the street, and he has the same exchange with the mother as he does in the trailer for that movie. Where he's like, I see him. He's right there. It's like, how can you see him? He's got a blanket over him. Oh, he's standing right here, or whatever. He's standing over. I mean, it was like beat for beat. I was like, wait. You just talked about Sixth Sense, so you're really gonna do this now? It's gonna be beat for beat the same thing.
Oh, I know.
Pretty much.
I was like half expecting.
I thought that was really strange, but that was really that's the only time where I was like, what?
What if he had like what if like the professor wound up being like, he's kind of a young, handsome looking man. He's just like, kid, I can't help you. I got my own demons,
It's Bruce Willis?
It's Bruce Willis' character. Just helping him see these ghosts at the time. It's just like him remaking the fucking Sixth Sense the entire movie. Anyway, he mentions Torchwood, Fringe, which was such a King reference because he was all obsessed with Fringe when it was out. The Person of Interest one was the funniest. It's like they watched.
I wrote that down too. Yeah.
And then also obviously like all of Liz's talk about like not only Knopfler but like when she's like, that wire that captures the drug scene a lot. Like, it's just like what? Like just talk about the drug scene. You're a fucking cop. Like what cop is going to reference a TV show about their own work? Like it's just I don't know. That would be like an undercover cop in the 80s being like, oh, hey, kid, you like Miami Vice? Miami Vice is all big. When Tubbs is talking about it's just like, no, you talk about your own fucking personal experiences as you're a cop. I don't know. That just took me out of it.
I don't know. For people like us who constantly reference things, I don't know. I kind of gave it a bit of a pass.
Yeah, I just imagine Liz, just defending, The Wire at the station. Oh, you didn't watch The Wire? It's a great show. It was underrated. Everyone was talking about The Sopranos, but.
But I did want to talk. You mentioned Torchwood, which is a spinoff of Doctor Who, and the reference is that Jamie doesn't like it, and I did the research, and this would have been season 1 or 2, which let's give or take for me. So I mean, James Marsters is in the second season, so if it's the second season, Jamie, sorry, but I disagree.
The third season's great. The children one.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
What was I going to say? I don't remember. Rachel, what was your misery?
Pretty slight. But there's a point where he says like, well, my friends, I've seen my friends smoke the herb. And I was like, what?
Narc.
What a loser.
Who says
Get this kid out of here?
Yeah. And then he also mentions really quickly Liz's partner, Jesus, as being like, 6'4" or something. And then he also just throws in the fact that he had dreads and how he thought that was really cool.
Oh my gosh. Page 69.
It's like your grandma or your grandpa just being like, I saw this guy today. He had dreads. You ever see that before?
And a cop with dreads. I don't know.
You wouldn't have seen that in my day, I'll tell you.
I couldn't stand when and maybe it's just part of King's DNA now. And look, I love this guy. I mean, I dedicate my entire life to him, but I can't fucking
my life
stand
for you.
My life for you, King. but I just fucking hate it when he talks politics. Like, and it's not only just because like I agree with all his politics. It's just the way it comes off. It just comes off as so like
in the book
virtue signaling, like the way they talk about like they wield politics with just Liz's character, and then later on when he's just like, I would be old enough when the elections came around in November or whatever. It's just like
I will vote when
I
will be able to.
Yeah, it's like it's so Aaron Sorkin.
Thumper
like,
probably didn't vote.
Yeah, like I don't know. It just for me it just comes off as just like so very like I'm still with it politically. I know what's going on, like or like let me talk about the political issues 10 20 years ago when I was probably.
Wait do you read the Institute, man?
Oh, no.
What do you got back?
Yeah, I've got a few more. The page 69, the realization that he's like, the Tia is starting to look old. I was just like, what are we doing here? Or a favorite of yours, Randall. I'm surprised you didn't mention it. Page 155. My nails were biting into my palms.
I have that in King's Dominion, because it's in so many King books now that it is inevitably King's Dominion.
That's more of a Room 237 connection.
Well, yeah, I do my Room 237s too.
Oh, I got one more, and this kind of drove me nuts because it's like when you build up a villain, don't resort to Looney Tunes antics. Like when you see like Thumper on the baseball diamond. What are you doing? Like, this is supposed to be like a menacing villain, and you're like, it's like, oh yeah, look, he stuck his finger up. It's like, what is this, a fucking Adam Sandler villain now? Like, I mean, it just seems so tonally off in that sequence. There's like, this was kind of funny, when he was wandering around the baseball stadium, and somebody went through him, and it just felt too cartoonish for me. Like,
it'd be funny if Thumper was wearing a baseball cap for the team.
I imagine him wearing baseball gear. Like when Bugs Bunny shows up in different sports gear and stuff.
Well, if we want to talk about echoes of it, one of its worst scenes takes place on a baseball field. So in the second half of it. So there you go. Echoes of it. Rachel, do you have anything else?
Well, I hated personally the fact that Uncle Harry drops this bomb right before chapter 69. But that was just me.
I didn't notice that. Oh,
yeah.
wow.
I was just like, oh, nice. Okay, cool. And then,
okay. Guess it was consensual.
Yeah, I guess. And then when he's like going through what could have potentially happened at the very end, he totally pulls a Seinfeld thing, and he yada yadas over like what could have happened. He yada sex. He's like, so yeah, and right. It could all be just the way I told it. I was like, oh, okay, that's you yada it.
Yeah. That felt like King yada-yadaing to the ending also.
He's just like, that's what things do. I gotta finish this. The phone's ringing off the hook. Tabby's like, Steve, you need it in 5 minutes.
I can't give it. Can I give it to you later? Pun intended.
We still got to print it, put a rubber band around it.
Yeah, no.
All right. I think that's it for Misery. Let's talk about the lighter side of Later with a little section we call Word Processor of the Gods.
And we're going to make a new rule. Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing. Whether you don't hear me typing, whether the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. Now, do you think you can handle that?
Yeah.
Fine. Why don't you start right now and get the fuck out of here?
Here in the Word Processor, we highlight the writing we really enjoyed in this book, the stuff that made us smile, that made our hearts soar into the sky. Who has one that they want to share? Nothing?
Go ahead, Rachel. I've got some.
Good.
I think a majority of the stuff for me was just like little one-lines. I think just the way it was written and just the nature of how the story was told, there wasn't like these really eloquent passages to me personally, but there were a lot of just one-liners that really stuck out to me. Like when he's talking about how Mrs. Burkett had the stroke and he's saying, thoughts drowning in blood. I never forgot that. And I was just funny. Like, oh wow, like that's pretty intense thinking about it that way. And so that one just really stuck with me. So that's one. And then
wow, that's wild. That's down
it works. And then you also mentioned the one where they're talking about the ghosts and why they linger and just saying, I don't like to tell you this, but hate stays stronger and lasts longer. I'll find some more, but if somebody else wants to go.
Yeah, I've got a section on page 92 that I just thought was kind of lovely.
I think I do too. Go ahead.
The
No, I
same
want to hear
one?
what you said. Yeah.
It's just one of his short little chapters. It's chapter 18.
Yep.
While we were eating our ice cream at Lickety Split, Liz phoned my mother to tell her where we were and what we were up to. Liz said, "It must be so strange what you can do. So weird. Doesn't it freak you out?" I thought of asking her if it freaked her out to look up at night and see the stars and know they go on forever and ever, but didn't bother. I just said no. You get used to marvelous things. You take them for granted. You can try not to, but you do. There's too much wonder, that's all. It's everywhere. And I love that because it sounds like something profound somebody young would say. Like, that's when you're that age and you kind of have, like, you're first starting to really understand the breadth of the world and the idea of what is the idea of impermanence and things of that nature. You start, like, I feel like that is something that you would kind of say to yourself when you're young. It's like one of those first profound thoughts that you really have, you know? So
yeah, I had the same exact thing, Randall, the whole little chapter.
Yeah, it was just a lovely little section. Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, same thing with you're all saying, like, it is like the little things that, gather you up. I love in page 134 when he says, tell you what, the worst part of growing up is how it shuts you up. Like little things like that you'd probably put in your AIM profile or something like that. And then on, I also like on page 239 when he's, I think it's just, I can't remember where it is in the book, but it's just like, I didn't sleep in the connecting room. I slept on the couch in Mom's. I dreamed that I was walking on a lonely country road under a sickle moon. Don't whistle, I told myself, but I did. I couldn't help myself. I was whistling Let It Be. I remember that very clearly. I hadn't gotten through more than the first 6 or 8 notes when I heard footsteps behind me. Like, oof, it just, love that stuff.
Yeah.
Some really good writing there. But
Rachel, how about you?
Two more. Yeah. So there's one on page 189, and it's really simple. He's talking to Liz, but he just said, "It didn't break my heart, but it squeezed it a little." And it's just like, oh,
that's a good line.
That's such like a perfect way to put that,
Mm-hmm.
And then on 229, when he's encountering this entity, he said, "You may beat the devil once through providence, bravery, dumbass luck, or a combination of all, but not twice. I don't think anyone but saints beat the devil twice, and maybe not even then."
Yeah.
Which I think, what we were talking about, his issues with addiction, I think that really speaks to that. Like, yeah, you can beat it, but have you, So it's still a threat,
I had that same exact line in King's Dominion, because in it, Bill talks about beating the devil on silver. And
echoes of it,
like, I beat the devil once. Can I beat it again with Audrey? And I was like, oh, that's interesting that he's using that again here.
Yeah, I have one other one that just kind of made me laugh, and I identified with it a little bit. It's on page 164, and Jamie's talking about the girl, that he has a crush on at school. He says, "I got back home around 2:15, a little late, but not where have you been? I was so worried late. I had a long scrape on one arm, and the knee of my pants got torn when one of the high school boys bumped me, and I went down hard. But I felt pretty damn fine just the same. Valeria wasn't there, but 2 of her girlfriends were. One of them said Valeria liked me, and the other one said I should talk to her, maybe sit with her at lunch. God, the possibilities." I just think it captures sort of that, 12, 13-year-old kind of crush that you get, and how exciting it is if, one of the friends says, "Oh, she likes you," It felt to me like a really small encapsulation of what it is to have a crush when you're that age.
Totally.
So very sweet. I loved it. Any other word processors?
Yeah, I had one more. It was something we spoke about earlier. The little punches that King likes to do when he's in this narrative. When in page 172, he wrote, "I did speak with Professor Burkett again, but there were no drinks or snacks. He no longer used those things because he was dead."
Love that.
I love those punches though, because it's I always expect it from King, but I it's such a thing that he does that I just love when he does it.
Yeah,
and I have to imagine that's like when he's done for the day, like he's finished his writing.
Yes. Oh, I forgot I left that in.
Yeah.
Like that's how he ends every day.
Yeah,
it's always like the next, like the foreshadowing of the thing.
I like that.
Well, I'll tell you guys, I feel a chill running up my spine, which can only mean that we are stumbling upon the cemetery.
What's the bottom of the truth?
Well, sometimes that is better.
person you put up there ain't the person that comes back. It may look like that person, but it ain't that person. Because whatever lives in the ground beyond that cemetery ain't human at all.
Here in the cemetery, we talk about the scariest passages, the stuff that will keep us up at night screaming and screaming and screaming. Do you guys get up at night screaming all the time?
All the
like
time.
me?
Night terrors.
Every night.
Night terrors.
All the time.
All the time. I'll kick things off. On page 110, I just love the first description of Thumper and how disgusting he looks, which King has a lot of fun with throughout the book. But the first description I really like. The real damage was on the left, where the bullet exited. The hole on that side was almost as big as a dessert plate and surrounded by irregular fangs of bone. The flesh on his head was swelled, like from a gigantic infection. His left eye had been yanked sideways and bulged from its socket. Worst of all, gray stuff had dripped down his cheek. That was his brain. I love that. Even though that was his brain was kind of unnecessary. Like, we get it. We know what the gray stuff is.
If it was gray stuff, it could have been the gray matter. We don't know.
Could be gray matter beer.
King's Dominion.
Any other
gray matter
cemeteries?
beer.
What do you guys got, Mike?
I got one from Thumper. It's surprise. Wow, what the demon in the book tends to be scary. Mine's on page 135. I'll get used to him, I thought. I got used to the hole in his head, and I'll get used to him. It's not like he can hurt me. But in some ways, he'd hurt me already. The D- on my math test and screwing the pooch at the swim meet were just two examples. I was sleeping badly. Mom had already commented on the pouches under my eyes, and little noises. Even a dropped book in study hall made me jump. I kept thinking I'd open my closet to get a shirt, and he'd be in there, my own personal boogeyman. Or under the bed. And what if he grabbed my wrist or my dangling foot while I was sleeping? I didn't think he could grab, but I wasn't sure of that either, especially if he was getting stronger. What if I woke up and he was lying in bed with me, maybe even grabbing my junk? That was an idea that once thought couldn't be unthought. And something else, something even worse. What if he was still haunting me because that's what this was, all right, when I was 20 or 40? What if he was there when I died at 89, waiting to welcome me into the afterlife, where he could go on haunting me even after I was dead? If this was what a good deed gets you, I thought one night, looking out my window and watching Thumper across the street under his streetlight, I never want to do another one. Like that last line with the streetlight. Oh,
yeah,
God. That is scary stories.
Yeah, the street lamp thing is creepy as hell.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, I had the drowning in blood thing in cemetery. I thought that was such a good description. I had the idea on page 60, spotted the old woman in the pink bathrobe. Maybe she was dead, or maybe she was just wandering the city. I like the idea that sometimes he doesn't even know if he's seeing a dead person, because you do see people like that all the time, and it's just like, does everybody see that person? I like that idea that that's out there.
Yeah, that was really effective. I didn't write that down, but there's a couple different sections where, like, I think when he's in the graveyard and he sees like somebody sitting on a tombstone nearby, and he's like, "Is that the dead person?" That to me is like, not the fact that you don't know sometimes is very, very eerie to me.
Reminds me of It Follows. You know?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, totally.
It's weird that you mentioned that you don't know. Like, there was a few months ago, and I usually walk the dogs in the morning because Sammy's sleeping, so she'll do the night walks. And there was like one morning, like early on, like 6 a.m, and I live over on a pretty main drag, like Addison. And I remember like looking across the street, and there's this woman that was coming down the street, and it was very Lynchian, actually. Like she looked disheveled. She looked as if like she was in another world. Like she had one shoe on, and like looked like she was going to attack someone. And I was like walking across, it was like really late. It was still early in the morning. And there was a part of me that like did actually wonder, like, is that person actually there? Like it was so surreal and so bizarre. And this person that was across the street walked right by her. And like, I didn't get an answer. Like I still don't know. I don't know if that person was actually, I mean, she probably was there, but how does a person that walks right by her, like didn't even like flinch, do anything at all? It was so
Have you
creepy.
lived in the city, Mike? We always walk by scary people.
I know.
We're used to it.
I was gonna say,
now.
I was like, if it was a particularly scary person, they probably were just like, if I even flinch, They're gonna know. They're gonna focus on me, kind of thing.
It was bizarre.
I've seen that before, but that is creepy. That idea I think is scary and I had it.
Rachel, what do you got?
Yeah.
Matt?
Oh no, Rachel, go. Well, I have a few, but Rachel, go for it.
So definitely everything you guys have talked about. I think there was another lady in the laundromat that he didn't know was dead, but then she was folding clothes, so he figured that she wasn't dead.
Yeah,
which I thought was interesting because why would you do that if you're dead? So for me, a lot of the conversations that he was having with himself about his mom really resonated to me, and kind of I don't know if scared's the right word, but it really brought up a lot of feelings in myself. So there was a passage here on page 133. So he says, telling somebody might help, and mom was the logical choice. She'd believe me, but I didn't want to scare her. She'd already been scared enough when she thought the agency was going to go under and she wouldn't be able to take care of me and her brother. That I'd helped her out of that pickle might make her blame herself for the one I was in now. That made no sense to me, but it might to her. Besides, she wanted to put the whole seeing dead folks stuff behind her. And here's the thing, what could she do even if I did tell her? So just that anxiety of just like wanting help, but not knowing how to ask for help and not wanting to bother, not wanting to impose that on his mom. Like growing up, I struggled with a lot of anxiety issues, and it came out in really weird ways. Like I would get sent to the principal's office a lot in in elementary school, or I would fake being sick just to go home. And I knew something was going on, but I didn't know how to put it into words, and I didn't want to bother my parents or worry them, and so I think that that's just for a kid, that's a scary place to be. And seeing him process like, okay, I've got a problem, but how do I talk to somebody about this in a way that's not gonna like make them scared?
Right.
So
I relate hard to that as well. Mike, what else do you have?
I like the little things that you kind of see, I mean, the girl that had golden hair and rosy cheeks and the hole in her throat, just kind of sitting next to the woman on the bus. Like, I love the little things that King has fun with, like playing with the rules. Like, the people that could kind of tell there was or Thumper sitting there or standing there outside. And the person just kind of got weirded out and didn't want to stand in that position. Like, it's little things like that I loved. I also love the delay of words. It kind of reminded me of one of the cold opens of the X-Files when, like, spoiler alert, one of the characters' dad dies, and you see the character just sitting there, just like mouthing words, and they're silent, and like you can't really tell what they're saying, and it just reminded me of that, and just like that separation of like audio and actual physical presence that's very dry, very Twin Peaksian.
Yeah, I really dug that. Mac, what else you got?
Yeah, I had that exact same thing. On a time delay from hell, the voice when Thumper's talking, it's like off. It's not quite there. I had, we mentioned it earlier, but the deadlight as if he was like a burned log with fire still inside. When Liz falls down the stairs, hits her head, starts laughing again, and then hits it again, and it's as if a radio turned off. I thought that was really disturbing to me.
Yeah.
Just the way the human body works like that. Just, I could picture that so vividly. It's so like jarring. And then just the idea that on page 239, the idea of waking up to the deadlight with its arms outstretched because you just happen to whistle in your sleep when you're doing things you're just not in control of.
Yeah.
And the idea that this thing, you could just be calling this thing into existence, which I think kind of speaks to what Mike was saying too, about likening that with like his uncle, and the idea that like you can ignore this as much as you want, but in your dreams you could dream about that, and it could come out, and it could just attack you when you're disarmed and you're not really thinking, you're not in control. So yeah. You actually just those were the ones I was going to read as well. Just the image of like sort of this rotted husk of a body with all this brilliant light pouring from it. I think that will always be an effective image for me. I feel like that's something like Mike Flanagan toys with in his movies. He loves to play with the eyes that shine like flashlights and things, and that's always a spooky image that I enjoy. So so it works. Clearly, King's been watching some Mike Flanagan. Yeah. So
he probably texted him. He's like, great as always, Mike.
It remind me of the cover of The Thing.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've, been shivering our tails off, I think it's time to get warm, get cozy, and cut ourselves a slice of pound cake.
Oh, Lord.
After all you've been taught, everyone isn't bad, Mama. Everything isn't a sin. Come to your closet and pray. Ask to be forgiven. He's a nice boy, Mom. You like him. You really like him, Mama.
Welcome to Pound Cake. This is the section where we talk about perhaps some of the more blush-worthy sections of King's work, the things that made us say, "Oh dear, honey." That's my new description for Pound Cake. What do you guys have? I have one straight up. This one actually harkens back to the old way of King, which is he calls a woman's breasts bazams. Yeah. The desk lady leaned forward. I was fascinated by how her extremely large bazams shoved her papers forward. Just that bazams felt like a fresh one for me. I feel like I haven't heard that from King. But it reminded me of the all-time classic that is in both Carrie and Salem's Lot, Jahoobies.
Jahoobies.
Which will always be the best King boob description. So yeah, bazams straight up. I got to give him credit for it. He still got it, even in his 70s. So what else do you guys got? Let's hear it.
All right, on page 81. A few minutes later, Liz left, slamming the door on her way out, and didn't come back for almost a week. But when she did, they made up in the bedroom. With the door closed, I heard that too, because the making up part was pretty noisy. Groans and laughter and squeaky bed springs.
Loves playing that cheeky game. Yeah. I actually have one that's
Can you guess what they were doing?
They're playing Twister.
Yeah, they were actually just playing a game.
I have one right a few pages after that, and it's something I already referenced before. It's the self-aware pound cake. It's when Liz is having to write the book, Regis's book. And I don't mean Regis Philbin. I mean Regis Thomas. But one night, deep into their second bottle of wine, I heard her tell Liz that if she had to write another sentence containing a phrase such as firm thrusting breast tipped with rosy nipples, she might lose her mind. Look, King, that's some great self-awareness right there. If it is that,
I had on page 54, on that day, Mom wouldn't have cared if Liz called her Bonnie Boobs a lot. I also had this weird aside that's not focused on at all. But page 141, I heard his sigh of relief when he sat down in his favorite chair. Also a fart. Not a trumpet blast, more of an oboe. It's like, why even describe it? Why are you even bringing that up now?
He loves his farts, man. He loves his farts.
He loves it.
No, and nobody loves King's fart references more than a fellow loser, Dan Caffrey, who will always. It's so funny. Whenever Pound Cake comes up around Dan, he starts talking about it in Under the Dome when the professor starts farting when he gets beat up. Dan thinks that is the funniest thing, and then that makes me think it's the funniest thing. I know.
It's one of the most pathetic descriptions ever given to a character.
Like if I farted while somebody was beating me up, that would be more embarrassing and hurtful than any punch laid on me.
Yeah.
Other Pound Cake that we have here.
A weird one.
Mike already mentioned it, but the 3 times that his shorts were lower than ever. Hey, better pull up your shorts, Mr. Thomas, or your willy's gonna get chilly.
Yeah, the chilly willy.
And the plumber's crack. I was like, okay, we get it.
We get it. Shorts are falling off.
Out. Chill out.
I thought it was kind of
go for it, Mike.
On 49, it's just like, I'd say there was a sex scene every 50 pages or so in Death Swamp, including one in a tree while hungry alligators crawled around beneath. We're talking 50 Shades of Roanoke. In my early teens, Regis Thomas taught me to jack off. And if that's too much information, deal with it. That's what you were saying.
Deal with it.
Okay.
But
I had the Roanoke thing in there too. Yeah, that's
the way
silly.
The way that he says that reminds me of like the father in Dirty Work when he's just like, yeah, we didn't have any methods of contraception, like pulling out. Like it just felt so direct and blunt.
Man, I hope somebody's keeping track of all of your pop culture references. I just want to see them stacked one on top of the other.
King himself.
I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here like John Malkovich in Rounders with my Oreos.
Oh, your Oreos. I see. It's your tell. You've just shown it to us.
Yeah.
Rachel, any other Pound Cake for you?
Can't find it exactly, but there's just a few times where he describes his friends were describing Liz's body as like a smoking hot body or something. It's just, so nothing serious. But you guys picked all the other ones.
She's a real Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah,
and that's why I feel like it gets. That's where I feel he kind of wavers from we have a lesbian relationship here. Yeah, but you also incredibly sexify Liz's character to the point where it's just it almost becomes male fantasy at that point.
Or like page, my last one's page 183. It says, the baggy sweatshirt beneath the coat showed only a hint of what had been generous breasts.
Yeah, the generous breasts.
Generous.
Who generous?
Hey,
who's
she,
who's giving them generous?
Those kids would have said she was stacked when she was younger.
Oh.
On page 27, he says torrid thighs.
Torrid. What makes thighs torrid?
Well, you got to read that Roanoke book.
Yeah. Got to get that book.
All right. Anything else before we venture over to King's Dominion? All right, let's walk off those extra calories over in a little place we call King's Dominion.
There's another world out there. I know there is.
Here in King's Dominion, we discuss the connections to the larger King multiverse, the various references that he pops in here. We've mentioned a few of them, but yeah, there's more to discuss. All King, because I already mentioned it, nails biting into palms is officially King's Dominion now. It's been in so many books. It's just like when you get a reference to Shawshank Prison. I'm getting a reference to the nails biting into palms, and it's funny. My nails had grown a little bit long, and I was out for a walk, and so I was like, well, before I cut them, I'm going to see if I can actually do it. Because,
oh my god!
And so I squeezed as hard as I could, like just nails digging into my palm as hard as I could, and I could not make them bleed. So maybe I just have really strong skin.
I like that you attempted the science project to see if you could do it. I love it.
Well, it was right after I read it in the book, and I was up, and I was like, is this a thing? Is it a real thing? Because I can't imagine ever clenching my fist so hard that happens. So,
you're like,
I can see you reading it, and like you get to that part, you just you're throwing against the wall, like, I can't. Why are you bringing this up again?
I just see you like
I suffer from my art.
You're probably like near Winnemac Park or something, and like there's a parent, the kid's just like, Dad, what's that man doing with his fists or whatever? It's just
like he's not real. He's a ghost.
He's not
a ghost.
Yeah, God, he threw.
What other King references did we find in this book?
There are a bunch.
Oh boy, yeah.
There's a ton.
Rachel, what's one that you got right off the top of the list?
Well, Shawshank Redemption. And then he also, doesn't he quote himself in here at some point about books are uniquely portable magic?
Yep.
I read that somewhere.
Yeah.
So those for sure. I couldn't help but think of Pascal when, thinking of Thumper following him around with the hole in his head. So I couldn't help but draw some Pet Sematary lines there.
It's a club favorite character. Just from me, the only one that likes Pascal.
Yeah, right.
There are a lot of 19 references, like Thumper set off the 19 bombs. The code for the safe or the room adds up to 19. So I thought that was cute.
So is Liz's phone passcode.
Oh, was it?
And those are like back to back too, which is weird.
It also spells
they both
book.
Oh, really? Okay.
If you, I tried to figure. I was like, does this spell anything?
Oh my God!
Books, the only thing.
Nice. I've been saying that he's been trolling throughout this whole book, and I took some reasons why. We already mentioned the Shawshank reference, the whole literary agency with like Roanoke. I felt like that kind of was a call to some of his his past works. The mentioning of Dolores, and they even go like Dolores, and then they may mention another name. Kind of like very titillating references to just get your eyes a little buzz. The mentioning of Chud, the fact that it's the Marsden house and not the Marston house, and it's kind of still like this mansion in the middle of nowhere. The use of the word dandy cleaners when we're discussing the deadlights felt very like, a reference to Dandelo. Even the fact that like when they're talking about how many other people have this ability to see dead ghosts, at one point I think it's either Liz or Jamie says like, how many do you think there are? Which kind of feels like another cheeky nod of like, oh, there are other people out there that can see ghosts. Maybe Danny Torrance is going to pop up at the end. And then obviously building on that is the hinting powers coming from the father. I just felt like all these little things like that were just King's way of, playing with the constant readers a little bit.
Yeah. What about you, Mac? What else do you have?
Mike got a lot of them.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. No, I had page 115. Thumper wanting to complete the circle, and I thought it caused a wheel. The more we talked about deadlights. The Page 162, bold words, but as I'd already found out, Thuralt could make as many untrue statements as it wanted to.
I added that too.
Page 177, that thing is from outside the universe, and I thought it is.
Yeah.
That's very nice. Page 190, Jamie speaks about how he forgot about it when talking about the fact he didn't try and call for it to come to mess with Liz when she kidnapped him for the second time. And I thought that was very in line with the idea that you forget about these things, and much like you forget about your childhood and all that. But this was more directly tied to that. And and then this isn't King's Dominion, I guess. Well, it is, but more of a to Carpenter. When the deadlight creeps in again, it sticks its hand through the mirror and grabs Liz by the throat, and that's right out of Prince of Darkness.
Yeah,
the imagery of that, and I thought that was a fun nod to that. It has to be that.
Yeah. So Rachel,
like
anything that we didn't get so far?
Oh, this isn't a King's Dominion thing, but I'm trying to remember. But I think he mentioned that one of the lawyers, at the end, his last name was like Grisham, and I was like, oh, that's very clever.
Speaking of names, or actually not, well, sort of. On page 145, he waved a hand. Bosch. I don't think that at all. Clearly a reference to Bosch, one of Stephen King's favorite TV shows.
And your new favorite show.
I'm 3 episodes in. I'm loving it. I'm loving being a dad. And then on page 107, I remembered Mr. Thomas saying my mom looked older, and now I thought my mom's lost friend looked older too. Thinner.
Oh.
Reference to the book Thinner.
Now, do you have any more, Randall? Because I
No,
have
that's
some
my
Room
last
237. I've got some great Room 237.
What is in room 237?
All right, page 30. I wrote a reference to The Shining, St. Anthony, and it says, Tony, come around. Something's lost that must be found. Tony.
I think I actually thought that too.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's pretty fair, Mac.
Page 32. Pretty soon after they die, their voices start to fade away, like turning down the music on the car radio. After a while, you can't hear them at all. And I wrote, Christine.
Oh my God.
Totally. 100%.
It's gotta be. It's gotta
beep,
be.
Beep, beep, beep.
Oh, this is my favorite. Page 35. But the bicycle man in Central Park scared the shit out of me. He was gushy. Where I went, at that point I went, he was gushy. And I went, oh, he's Dr. Irving Gushy Gushman, played by Dennis Wolfberg in Quantum Leap.
Oh,
Project Quantum Leap's head computer programmer, always referred to as Gushy. So I was like, oh, we figured it out. It's a deep cut reference to Gushy, the character from Quantum Leap.
Oh my God.
It's gotta be true.
Bear with me. I have 3 more.
No one can top that one.
Page 135. I kept thinking, actually, Mike mentioned this, but he buried the lead. I kept thinking I'd open my closet to get a shirt and he'd be in there.
Lord.
My own personal boogeyman. And I thought, oh, he's his own personal Bogeman. He's richer than anybody knew.
Mr. Boge.
Page 160. This is Chud. I'm in mortal combat with a demon right here in the front hall of my New York apartment building. And I thought that was just fun.
Like a reference to the video game?
The video game and to Chud.
I was going to say Chud the
ritual
movie.
of Chud. And Chud the movie, yeah.
New York.
And then page 195, other companies took a long walk off the same short dock.
God.
Wow.
Long walk.
Wow.
Hey,
folks, this is why I like being on book episodes.
Hey, look, the Room 237s are the greatest.
They're always a highlight.
I spend all my time looking for these things. Also, page 200, pills, Jamie, pills. And all I could think was that Wonder Show's and with the kids going, pills, pills.
That's not even King's Dominion or Room 237.
I know. Well, these are random. I have a section that I always want to include called random because it's just things I think of when I come through it. But 2 things that I thought were interesting, though. The James McKenzie Fund I thought was weird.
Yeah.
That's my name reversed.
Name.
I just thought, oh, this is interesting. And then they mention on page 172 the Sarasota Memorial Hospital, which is where I was born.
Wow.
Whoa.
So I just was like, for those two things to be in the same book, I thought were really weird.
Well,
Some
he is a
personal
listener.
King's Dominion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think
And
I got some room 237 for you. I think he
Oh, yeah,
listens
let's
to
hear
our
it.
show, and you're his favorite loser, Mac.
Those were purposeful. Those were meant for you.
Those are for you. He's going to call you up after listening to this
that
week's
King
episode.
listens to it?
Yeah,
is
he
room
listens to the
237.
pod.
You're going to get an email, and we're going to get an email on the Losers Club at Gmail, and I'm going to be like, guys, check out the email. And it's going to be like, Mac, you connected the dots, and the prize is a reference.
I'm gonna. The prize is that I get to choose the next story in the next book, and spoiler alert, it's gonna involve the Tommyknockers.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Holly Gibney.
You were going to say the Culkin Quest or what?
Conklin Quest.
Conklin.
It's the series. It's the name of the series, the Conklin Quest.
Oh, I love it.
And the second one is where the Tommyknockers bring him, and they say, "Hey, we need you to talk to some dead aliens."
You got to talk to Tommy.
I hope it's another hard-boiled classic.
On that note, I think it's time to pivot over into our final thoughts.
Dad, can we go now?
You ready?
Yeah, we've been ready for an hour.
Okay, I'll be right there.
You said that a half hour ago. Yeah, my dad's weird. He gets like that when he's writing.
Here in Final Thoughts, we share our final thoughts, along with our Pennywise Clown Nose rankings and MVP. For you, the listeners, thank you for bearing with us through this episode. Who wants to kick things off? Mike, why don't you give us your Pennywise Clown Nose ranking and your MVP?
Well, this is mid-tier King for me. I think this is kind of no different than his other leaner efforts. You mentioned Gwendy's Button Box. I mentioned Elevation. Where he's kind of engaging with weighty stakes and this sort of breezy fly by the seat of your pants brand of storytelling. And it's weird because, Randall, I think you'll relate to this. I kind of like in this book a lot to the way I almost look at like bigger projects for me as late. Where I like a lot of these big ideas, and then I get them on paper, and I don't want to spend too much time for them, with them, for fear that I have too much else going on. And I think that's kind of the case here, because there's a lot of story within 250 pages, and as we all know, there's definitely a side of King where that could have easily become 700 to 800 pages. But I don't really think it would work. I think, especially given the structure and format, I actually appreciate the recap energy of this book, because it moves, it moves faster than it should in some instances. But I think at the same time, I'd argue that if you lingered any more, I think you'd kind of welcome more of a porous narrative, where like the messy things like logic and circumstance would come into fruition, and I think we'd poke even more holes at it. So as it stands, I think this is comfortable, enjoyable. It's a nice little coming of age story. And it kind of leaves all the revelations in hindsight, as we discussed, which actually feels more true to life than like a broader treatise or something like that. So anyway, I give this 3 bright red Pennywise Clown Noses. It's a parable in King's Dominion. Nothing more, nothing less. And I think my MVP, I'm going to go with our boy Thumper.
The man himself.
Yeah.
Love it. Rachel, what is your bright red Pennywise Clown Nose ranking and your MVP?
So I agreed with a lot of what Mike just said. I'm going to go 3 bright red Pennywise Clown Noses. I enjoyed this a lot. I think he actually manages to fit a lot of nuance and a lot of content into this really slim book. I had a lot of fun reading it, and I also connected in a lot of ways that I wasn't expecting to, moving through it. But it also is, it's a quick and easy read. It's self-contained, and it's not like a huge investment either, emotionally or time-wise. But I thought it was really great, and I enjoyed it, and of course would recommend it. As far as MVP goes, oh boy. I really like Tia in this, not just as a character, but just the fact that she exists in one of King's books. I think that it's an interesting character for him to write. I mean, she's a great mom, and seeing her through a kid's eyes, I think, was really different, but she was also shown a lot of respect, I think. And he actually was able to fill out her character, even though it was just told through Jamie, I think, in a lot of ways. So more than just her, the character herself, I just really appreciated how he approached her and presented her.
Cool. Good one. Mac.
Well, much like Stephen King echoed it, I'm going to echo you two and say 3 bright red Pennywise clown noses. And I almost gave it 3.5 because I just felt like at the end of the day, I don't think I've burned through a King book this fast in a long time, and it was just fun, and I just had a good time with it for the most part. Obviously there's things we didn't like about it, but for the most part, I thought it was pretty enjoyable. And I always think King's shorter stuff is his best, and even though you could tell he was struggling to keep it short in this, for the most part, it's pretty tight. I mean, I enjoyed it. I loved. Say what you will about the Ritual of Chud. Love seeing that specific thing come back and be the thing that really is like, oh yeah, we're bringing back Ritual of Chud. No one likes it. No one puts it in the movies or anything. Although they finally did. But I thought that was funny that was the thing that he brought back. And then obviously the Dandelo-esque creature, which we didn't really talk about this, but I do not believe that it was it. It was just, I just felt like it was another one of those kind of creatures. Which is fun. I just thought that was a fun way to bring him back. My MVP, I wasn't a Throat, but I'm gonna say it was the Deadlight.
The Deadlight itself.
Throat's only in it for like a heartbeat, but I think the Deadlight continues.
Yes, absolutely. Cool. I think the thing with this book was it surprised me in a lot of ways, which is good. And, I read a lot of King and I think a lot about, King books always make me think and I always sit with them, but it's rare that I leave a book unsatisfied and I find I find myself thinking about it to that point where I kind of turn the thing that I didn't like kind of becomes something I did like. So like the epilogue with the incest and everything is a really bizarre and again, inelegant sort of bit of writing, but what it presents and what it opened up for me thematically for this one, that actually ended up being really satisfying. And I found myself thinking about this book more in the aftermath than I do with a lot of other King books. So, or at least I was, usually with King, I'm thinking more about the characters or certain moments. It's not often that I sit with his themes really deeply. And so in this one, sitting with the themes was a really uniquely satisfying experience. And yeah, and I agree with you guys that this is a satisfying read. It's fun and it's got good characters and it does it all in such an economical way, which is really rare for him. So it's nice to see that. And there's some really good gruesome horror and gore in this, which, was good to see because I don't know, not even If It Bleeds gave us, kind of that old-fashioned King gore as much. And the Institute didn't really either. It's not something we get a lot in modern King. So I enjoy it when he gets a little bit gnarly. So yeah, I'm going to give it 3.5 bright red Pennywise clown noses. And my MVP is going to be, let's see here. It's going to be Biggie Smalls. I love this man. This guy is this ball gag. I'm just kidding. He's not my MVP. My MVP is Stumper because he's creepy as hell. Mike,
actually, I have a change of MVP for myself. It's actually going to be Michael Strahan for his excellent work interviewing Stephen King.
Excellent interview of Stephen King on Good Morning America. Man, this guy knows how to do it.
MVP is actually the show The Wire. You should check it out.
It's person of really interest.
It's gonna be Torchwood for me.
Fringe.
Hey, Torchwood's good. Fringe. Love Fringe. Love Fringe. Check it out.
Well, I love this podcast, and I love you guys. Thank you so much for being part of this episode. Thank you, Michael Strahan, for your great interview with Stephen King. Sorry, I just love this bit. Yeah, stay tuned. We've got a lot of fun stuff up. We've got our episode on the Regulators coming up soon, and also our episode on the crossover between Desperation and Regulators. We're going to devote a whole episode to discussing what works and what doesn't in sort of that strange marketing literary gimmick that King embarked upon back in 1996. We've also got a commentary track on Christine, the film, John Carpenter's Christine, coming up, which is going to be a good time. And if you haven't listened to it yet, our Patreon users have access to In the Mouth of Madness, a deep dive into that Carpenter flick. So lots of good stuff going on. If you are interested in becoming a patron, we have lots of fun episodes. We have access to our Discord and monthly hangouts with the losers. You can access that at patreon.com/thebarons. We would love to have you. Until then, however, let's wish everyone a long days and pleasant nights.
I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. But you know you want somebody to treat you good.
This is the end of our show. For now. We hope you enjoyed this production. If you like our programming, consider searching for other bloody disgusting podcasts, such as Creepy, Horror Queers, The Boo Crew, SCP Archives, Nightlight, Margaret's Garden, and more.